I caught my wife cheating with her boss, recorded everything in HD, and exposed her to everyone. The most painful thing was watching my wife prepare for an evening with her boss, Mark Diamond. She wore desirable clothes, spent a lot of time on makeup and hair, and put on a dress and high heels I had never seen. I felt betrayed, jealous, and angry. She did all this for Mark, not me, while I worked hard to provide for our family. It was confusing. Our bed life was great, and Jessica was always attentive and open. After 20 years of marriage, I trusted her. Except for that one night a month ago at her company's dinner, when Mark paid too much attention to her. There was a smirk when he looked at me after dancing with my wife, giving me a hint. For some reason, a bad feeling bothered me, and it got worse when I told Jessica the next day. Her defense of Mark confirmed my suspicions. Late meetings and missed lunches suddenly became a red flag that I needed to address immediately. The more I thought, the angrier I became. Jessica is Mark's personal assistant, and Mark is the managing partner of a prestigious law firm. He loves flaunting his success with expensive cars, jewelry, and his young trophy wife, Stella. She was a 30-year-old, extremely desirable girl he exchanged for his ex-wife of 20 years. Mark likes making jokes at other people's expense, and I remember him making fun of my work on one of our walks. I sell screws and fasteners to large retail stores. It's not a glamorous job, but I made over $200,000 a year, providing a good living for my family. I gave Jessica everything she wanted and paid for our daughter Sarah's college education. She was now in her second year. We live in a pleasant community with good friends and a comfortable lifestyle. I wasn't a power broker and didn't make $1 million a year like Mark, but we were happy, or so I thought. The night he ridiculed my work in front of my wife and others stirred my anger. It wasn't just his arrogance that bothered me, but also the fact that my wife defended him after he humiliated me regarding the question about my work at Home Depot. He asked, "So, Johnny, how's it going with the nuts and bolts? It must be fun working at Home Depot every day." Upon witnessing Jessica's laughter, my blood boiled, prompting my silent departure. To her credit, Jessica approached me and inquired about the issue. Upon explaining, she attempted to downplay it. She remarked, "Oh baby, he's just kidding. He loves to have fun. You shouldn't take everything so personally. Come with me. He's a really good guy." Against my better judgment, I stayed at dinner. Looking back, I realize I should have seen the signs, but now I may have missed some red flags. I'm not a fool, and I wouldn't sit quietly. I can understand why people are attracted to Mark. He's the alpha, the big, strong, good-looking man, the wealthy partner everyone wants to be around. Jessica was his closest ally at the firm. Everything was going well. Despite his younger, handsome wife, for Mark, he wanted it all, including someone else's wife. Over the next week, I acted quickly to find out if I was crazy or if my intuition was correct. After 6 audio recording devices and 5 video cameras arrived, I began to implement my plan. The first camera went in the smoke detector in our bedroom. The next 2 captured different angles of the bedroom. The rest went in the master bath and living room. All cameras had live streaming and up to 8K recording, connecting wirelessly to a computer in the attic, controlled remotely via a phone app. The audio devices were unique, one in a pen next to the kitchen phone and the other discreetly in her car. Standard recording devices went in her 3 favorite purses and one behind our bed. With this setup, I should capture at least 90% of her conversations and activities in the house. I felt a sense of foreboding about the upcoming week as I prepared for a business trip. Jessica, as usual, showered me with love and made our time in bed unforgettable. Whenever I went on a trip, she would begin with lots of kisses and sweet talk, expressing her love and desire for me. Her closeness and love were something I cherished, and she never disappointed. She expressed, "I love you so much, and I love making love to you, honey." With tears in her eyes, she looked at me with a smile and said, "I love you too, baby. You are amazing, and I will love you forever." It was an incredible night, and I felt so close and in love with this woman that I was convinced she couldn't be unfaithful. I almost abandoned my plan to spy on her, but thankfully, I left everything as it was and embarked on my 2-night trip. This week, I wanted to give her enough time in case something happened. We kissed goodbye, and by 6 p.m., I was on my way for the 3-hour drive to the hotel. The trip gave me time to reflect on the last 6 months of trying to find something else to do. Apart from 2 incidents with her boss, that smirk and his attempt to humiliate me, nothing changed. I smiled when I realized I was being foolish and paranoid. When I finally arrived at the hotel, I checked into my room, turned on my laptop, and relaxed on the king-size bed. It took a few minutes, and I checked my email for any work messages. Then I clicked on the link to the server in my attic to view the last 3 hours. I knew there wouldn't be much to see, but I needed to test the remote access system. I played the video at 3 times the speed until I saw my wife in the bedroom, then returned it to normal speed to enjoy watching my beautiful, desirable wife making a phone call. What I didn't expect was the phone conversation with Mark an hour after I left. The video camera captured the audio. As I watched her lying on the bed talking to her boss, I could only hear her part of the conversation. As I watched and listened to the videotape, she mentioned that I had left and she was all alone. She confirmed it would be 2 nights this time. They discussed when he could come, considering the risk of his wife asking about his whereabouts. She expressed excitement about the prospect and agreed to spend the night with him, expressing her desire to wake up next to him. After arranging the details, she reassured him that she was all his, and they exchanged words of affection. As I sat there in shock, I couldn't comprehend how we had just made passionate love, and now, an hour later, she was inviting him to spend the night. It left me questioning who this woman truly was. How could she profess love to me and betray me moments later? The unsettling question lingered, is he coming tonight? For the next hour, I watched my loving wife prepare to meet her lover. Watching her shower, put on desirable lingerie, high heels, and makeup after spending 30 minutes fixing her hair was both painful and erotic. I always knew she was a passionate being, but she never dressed like that for me. Anger and jealousy consumed me as I realized she was doing it all for Mark, not her faithful husband. It was hard to believe. The question of whether Mark would come over tonight was soon answered when the doorbell rang. I observed Mark walking into my house and sharing a deep kiss with Jessica in real time as captured by the video camera. I took a close-up of their kiss, an image that caused me to vomit for the first time that night. He complimented Jessica, remarking, "Wow, baby, you look amazing in that dress. I can't wait to rip it off your desirable body and make love to you all night long," with a wide smile directed at her. While their exchange fueled my anger, it transformed into unbearable pain when I witnessed her taking his hand and leading him into our bedroom. The pain intensified as I watched her undress him, revealing a man with a robust physique and six-pack abs. As I observed this scene, a mixture of jealousy, rage, and anger consumed me, yet a peculiar sense of admiration for their audacity emerged. After the second bout of vomiting, I endured listening to them engage in personal activities for the next hour. Realizing my marriage was over, I acknowledged that I shouldn't have allowed it to bother me, but their conversation proved to be the most painful part of the night. As they lay together, he initiated a dialogue. He mentioned my absence, noting, "Your husband is away for a few nights, making you all mine for the next 2 days. She responded with enthusiasm, expressing her thrill that he could stay the night and how she had wanted to wake up next to him for so long. She confirmed her affection, stating that she loved being with him. He continued with anticipation, expressing his excitement about having her over and over again all night while her husband worked hard. In a moment of self-awareness, she remarked on the situation, calling it foolish. She reminded him to behave, stating that she loved her husband and he was a good person. He questioned their affair, asking why she let him have closeness with her. He mentioned that they were both married and they should just enjoy the time they had together. She agreed, saying it made sense. He confessed his feelings, stating that she gave him more love and affection than his wife or any other woman he had been with. For him, it was more than just closeness. He loved the way she made him feel, Jessica. This revelation caused deep hurt, as the love he spoke of was supposed to be exclusively for me. I continued to witness their interactions as they hugged, kissed, and talked. In another exchange, Mark asked if her husband satisfied her as much as he did. He acknowledged that her husband was a wonderful lover but claimed that he was not like her. He asserted that she did things to him that he couldn't explain. Overwhelmed with sadness, hurt, and a profound sense of loss, I turned off the computer, unable to endure this betrayal in my own home, in my own bed. I decided to stop listening. After grappling with anger for several hours and experiencing insomnia, I came to the realization that a future filled with pain and the pursuit of revenge awaited me. Upon returning home, everything appeared normal, filled with love and respect as if nothing had transpired. Jessica greeted me with a big hug and lots of kisses, acting as though nothing had occurred during my absence. However, the love I had always felt for her had transformed into disgust, causing me to shudder at her kiss. Despite my inner turmoil, I played the role of an actor convincingly, striving to appear as normal as possible. I gathered all the recordings and videos, creating copies in the cloud for backup, and crafted an encrypted file on my computer. Over the next 2 weeks, I ensured that every moment Jessica spent with me was purposeful. I kept her busy, deliberately preventing any opportunity for quickies or late-night encounters. She even inquired about my next trip, a clear indication that they desired my absence. One morning, while she was driving to work, I overheard their conversation. "When will your husband leave town again?" "I'm not sure, but I'll find out." "It's got to happen soon, baby." Aware of their intentions, I strategically planned a one-night trip to ensure he would come while I was away. The plan started taking shape that same evening. As I watched a movie on TV, my cheating wife asked, "Darling, when is your next trip?" Attempting to control my anger, I responded in a joking voice. Honey, are you trying to get rid of me? Do you have a secret lover who comes when I'm not there? She maintained her composure, showing no signs of guilt. Do not be silly. I like it when you're home. I hope you don't have to leave, and I'm wondering if your travel has been cut back. No, sorry, honey. My job still requires me to travel. Yes, I have an evening appointment next Tuesday, and I'll be back sometime on Wednesday, I said in a convincing tone. I hate it when you leave. I wish you didn't have to. Travel like that. I miss you so much when you're gone. She then came over, hugged me, kissed me deeply, and made me feel more loved than I can explain. Upon realizing that she was giving the same love to another man, I felt an intense urge to scream and throw her to the floor. However, I maintained my composure and continued to work as usual, knowing that my plan would be put into action the following week. On Tuesday, I packed up for the trip, and Jessica and I had our last session of lovemaking. She kissed me wonderfully before I left that night, and I wondered if she had seen the sadness in my eyes when I looked at her one last time. I noticed her expression change, but I wasn't sure what she was thinking. Instead of leaving town, I returned to my office and parked my car. I then went back to my desk to work late, which was not unusual, and the few people who were there never questioned my arrival. At approximately 7:30, the video camera turned on as Mark entered my house and tenderly kissed my soon-to-be ex-wife. Again, it was showtime. I used a phone app to turn off the video camera, stashed my cell phone in a drawer to avoid GPS tracking, and quietly left the office. I grabbed my folding electric bike from the car trunk. The electric motor allowed speeds up to 30 miles per hour, covering 50 miles on a single charge. Wearing a black hoodie, I made sure no one noticed and silently biked the 12-mile journey back home. The idea behind the bike was stealth, enabling me to return home quietly and unnoticed. Within 20 minutes, I parked the bike behind the house, entered through the open backsliding door I had left, and stood quietly to ensure I wasn't discovered. Listening for sounds from the bedroom, I confirmed they were occupied, and my arrival wasn't known. I fetched a short-barreled rifle and an aluminum bat from the closet, placing the rifle outside the bedroom and holding the bat. Quietly opening the door to the candlelit room, their noise covered my approach. Without hesitation, I walked to the bed and delivered a strong blow to the side of his head. The dull thud of metal hitting flesh was overshadowed by the 250-pound man hitting the floor. Grabbing the rifle and turning on the light, Jessica realized what was happening. She looked stunned and in shock. She screamed, "Oh God, no, please no, this can't be true. Why are you here? You should be away. Why are you with another man in my bed? That's a better question. Now shut up and pay attention." The big man, semi-conscious, sat against the wall with blood dripping from a 6-inch wound caused by the metal bat. Watching him regain consciousness, I pointed the rifle at him. "Damn it, this hurts. Why did you do that?" "Dude, are you kidding? You have closeness with my wife in my bed and you think I won't react? What are you going to do?" He nervously looked at the rifle I was pointing. "Are you worried, big man? Are you afraid I will hurt you? I know what you two did behind my back, and today is payback. I'm going to do away with you, Mark. Tonight you will die." Teasingly, I continued, "Everything you worked for will disappear. I hope it was worth it, prick." "Dude, you do away with me, you're going to jail for the rest of your life. To hell with this. We will all die tonight." "How does that sound, idiot?" I wanted to put the fear of God into both of them, with no plans to actually kill them. Their fear excited me. Jessica was crying, curled up, trying to cover herself. "Baby, please don't do anything stupid. I love you. I really do. Put the rifle down and let's talk about this." With an evil grin, I pointed the rifle at her. "Shut up. This is because you wanted adventures outside of our marriage. Whatever happens tonight is all your work." They knew they were in trouble and had to calm me down, or I would hurt everyone. The rifle had custom-made loads with 25% salt and 75% capsicum oleoresin pepper spray. I aimed to cause pain, maybe damage, not to kill. Though I had no intention of going to jail, I wanted to seriously scare them, making the emotions last. After Big Mark recovered, he tried to rush at me and I unloaded the first round. The explosion was loud, his screams louder. A few minutes later, as he sat writhing in pain, bleeding, I explained the plan. Kicking him to get his attention, I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife. "Listen to me, and you too, my cheating wife. I'll leave in a few minutes, and you take this loser to the emergency room before he bleeds out. You won't call the police. You'll take him to the hospital in your car. You won't tell anyone how this happened or that I was involved. If any of you say I was involved or knew about your infidelity, the collected video, audio, and photos will go public. Don't fire my ex-wife. She'll need her job after the divorce. If you come after me or she refuses the divorce proposal, everything comes out. Get him to the hospital before he bleeds and remember what I said." I left the same way I came, fixing the lock and closing the door. I put the bat and rifle in a bag, slung it over my shoulder, and quietly left the area. I threw the bat and rifle into different parts of the river while riding my bike back to the office. I removed the surgical gloves and threw them away. Upon returning to the office, I stored my bike in the car and returned to my desk by 9 p.m. After that, I set off on my trip, bidding farewell to some CO workers burning the midnight oil. To everyone's knowledge, my car never left the parking lot, and I stayed at my desk all evening. Accusations would be their word against mine, with no proof if they ever pointed fingers. Mark had surgery. He had to shave his head for 18 stitches due to a concussion. According to his story, he last remembered walking home with paperwork to his personal assistant before ending up in the hospital. He told the police he couldn't recall seeing anyone or being assaulted. Choosing to stay silent, he was aware that I could destroy his life and career. Jessica was extremely upset and didn't utter a word about the incident. All she mentioned was hearing a shot. When she went outside, she found Mark lying there and rushed him to the hospital, thinking there wasn't time to wait for an ambulance. Neither could explain why he was undressed, and both stuck to their stories. Mark's wife doubted him, causing significant problems. I spent the afternoon removing surveillance equipment, uploading everything to an encrypted cloud server, and tossing the equipment away. Any remaining evidence of their affair was now inaccessible in the cloud. Around 6 p.m., Jessica entered and found me in the living room with a bottle of my good whiskey. I sat quietly as she faced me on the couch. She looked shattered and sad. I had never seen her like this, and for a brief moment I felt sorry for her. With tears in her eyes, she couldn't bear it and tried to explain everything. "Johnny, what you witnessed was bad, but you need to know I wasn't in love with him. I know it seemed that way, and it must have hurt, but you know me. After closeness, I need connection. It was all for you, baby. When you left, I hated being alone, and Mark kept me company. And yes, it got passionate, but it was just closeness. You have to believe me." My mouth hung open in amazement at the incomprehensible excuse she made. "Jessica, I heard your explanations, and despite you saying those words of love were meant for me, I can't help but believe they were for Mark. It's over, Jessica. 20 wonderful years wasted because of your boss and your infidelity. We both have to live with your actions forever. Thanks for the pain and suffering you caused me. I'll always cherish it," I said sarcastically. "What do we do now?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "Well, we're finished. With you, I'll never understand how you did this to me or why. I'll have to live with it forever. There's no way I can forgive what you did, but I'll keep my promise and not expose your infidelity. Sarah and your parents will never know they have such a woman instead of a mother and daughter. You'll have to explain why we're getting a divorce, but I warn you, don't make me the villain. If you do, it will end badly because I'll make sure everyone knows you're nothing more than a cheating adulteress. I'm putting the house up for sale, and in the meantime, you need to find a place to stay. Since you ruined everything, you need to move out. I'm not asking. This is what you'll do. Let me know where to send the divorce papers. Sign the papers and don't resist the divorce. Otherwise, it will be painful for you and your boyfriend." Crying into her hands, she tried to speak. "He's not my boyfriend, and I don't love him. Can't we figure this out? Is there anything we can do? I know it's too late after what I did, but I can't live without you, and I'll do anything to keep us together. I never wanted to lose you. Please don't leave me." Jessica, if it had only been about closeness, we might have had a chance to mend things through counseling or separation. But what really ended my love for you was that you shared a love with him that was supposed to be just for me. The words you spoke to him destroyed us and everything I felt for you. No, I'll never forget or forgive your betrayal. I never want to see or talk to you again. After the divorce is finalized, you'll vanish from my life forever." After hours of pleading for forgiveness, she left the next morning, staying with her parents until the house was sold. During the following week, the police interrogated me, trying to make me admit involvement. I hired a lawyer, informing them that without evidence, I wouldn't answer questions without a warrant. With no proof and an alibi, they left me alone. The incident was eventually reported as a random burglary and assault. Jessica and her family called, begging me to reconsider. I was told she loved me, couldn't live without me, and was sorry. They urged counseling, but I stopped answering calls, changed my number, and cut all ties. Yes, the loss was devastating. Every second of separation was painful, but I couldn't come to terms with her betrayal. Jessica, a 42-year-old single mother, lived on her salary in a one-bedroom apartment. The pleasant life she once enjoyed was gone. Her daughter and family blamed her for the failed marriage. Now alone, Mark was more focused on saving his own marriage. Treated poorly at work, Jessica was blamed for Mark's physical and marital problems. Unable to work together, she was transferred to an administrative role with the same pay. Her new job was dull, and she lost her prestigious position working with one of the partners. News spread that she was one of Mark's ex-girlfriends, and she was treated accordingly. With a job she despised, no prospects for promotion, no friends, no husband, and a family blaming her for the divorce, she sank into depression. She cried every night, missing Johnny intensely. Her heart ached constantly, and thoughts of her actions haunted her. Sarah tried to help, but it seemed irreversible. Jessica neglected herself, eating poorly and drinking heavily, claiming that without Johnny she had no reason to worry. When Sarah sought advice from her father, he sympathized but never reconciled. Stella orchestrated Mark's misery, making him pay for his infidelity. She dated younger men, keeping Mark around to cover expenses. Although they appeared together at events, they led separate lives. Mark would never have closeness again and would never find love for the rest of his life. He'd always remember when his life changed due to his desire for someone else's wife. He was incredibly angry with me and wanted to hurt me in the worst way possible. However, nothing happened for months. Later that year, I was having a drink with my colleagues when I was attacked and battered outside the bar. My friends came to help, but the attackers left before the police arrived. I spent 2 days in the hospital with broken ribs and 20 stitches. I believe they intended to kill me, and if it weren't for my friends, they might have succeeded. I knew it was revenge from Mark, and I wasn't surprised at all. 6 weeks later, feeling much better, I called Mark's office. "Mr. Diamond, please," I told his secretary. "Sorry, he's at a meeting. Can I take a message?" "Yes, tell him to meet me at Old One Cafe this Friday at the French Deli across the street." "I'm sorry, sir. I don't schedule appointments with Mr. Diamond." "Just leave a message. Write it down. Friday, 1 p.m., French Deli. Be there alone. Johnny." Just give it to him, and he'll understand what it means. "Thank you." Seated at a table facing the door, I waited for Mark. When he walked in alone, I motioned for him to sit. "What do you want?" he asked. Ignoring his outburst, I said, "Thank you for coming. Your people did a good job, but they didn't follow through because you ignored my warning. You forced me to act." Handing him a folded paper, I said, "Here's a link to a website created just for you. It operates from Syria with backup servers. It's untraceable. You're screwed. Check it out when you get back to your office." I omitted Jessica's face. "She shouldn't pay for your sins. After viewing the site, think about how your life will change." His anger grew. "You've already ruined my life. Just stop it or we'll kill you. That's why we're here. I want to end this. You took away the most precious thing in my life, my wife. You ruined our 20-year marriage and I can't let you go free. I risk being destroyed, but I'll avenge the thrashing your people gave me." "Okay, calm down. What do you want?" "2 things that are not subject to discussion. You will stop any retaliation against me or anyone I know, including Jessica. You will deposit $1 million into this account by the end of the day on Friday. If the funds are not in the account by 9 p.m. on Friday, I will take action. This paltry amount I'm asking should be considered a gift. If I agree, how do I know that you still won't destroy me? I'm a man of my word, trust me. I will say this, if you don't do this, then there is a 100% chance that this site will become famous by Saturday morning. I hope you suffer for the rest of your life for what you did to my happy marriage." The money was transferred. We sold the house and divided the property. Jessica had enough money to live a comfortable life if she continued to work or found another husband. Mark kept her working as part of our deal, but they were never close again. Jessica never remarried, rarely dated, and lived with the pain she caused both men. She had lost her marriage and the love of the man she wanted to be with for the rest of her life, and now found herself alone and depressed. She died before her 50th birthday, a broken, sad woman. Only her daughter Sarah was present at the ceremony to scatter the ashes. Johnny continued to work for several more years and retired to a small town by the ocean. He married a nice woman who liked him mentally, but he could never replace the special love that only Jessica could give him. He never spoke to her again and only heard about her from Sarah, whom he adored. They talked every day and remained close. But Sarah rarely mentioned her mother because she knew her father still loved her and did not want to awaken his pain. Jessica's passing saddened him, but it also brought final relief to the deep sadness he had kept locked away.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Tyler Walsh stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his corner office, watching the autumn leaves dance across the financial district below. At 45, he cut an imposing figure in his tailored charcoal suit. The morning sun caught the silver threading through his dark hair, earned through years of building Walsh Investment Partners from scratch. His phone buzzed with a text from his stepdaughter, Cassandra Stone. "Dad, I hate to ask, but the university billing office is being difficult again. Can we talk?" Tyler smiled. remembering the scared 12-year-old girl who'd first called him dad 15 years ago. Now at 27, pursuing her MBA, Cassandra had blossomed into a confident young woman. He'd made sure of that, providing every opportunity money could buy. Of course, sweetheart. I'll handle it today. His secretary, Margaret Chin, knocked on his door. Mr. Walsh, your 10 a.m. with Platinum Holdings is here. Push it to tomorrow, Margaret. Family matter. Margaret nodded, hiding her surprise. In 15 years, she'd never seen Tyler Walsh reschedule a meeting with a major client. Of course, sir. Shall I have James bring the car around? Please. And Margaret? Clear my afternoon, too. Tyler gathered his belongings, including a leather portfolio containing Cassandra's previous tuition statements. She'd been asking for more frequent payments lately, citing rising costs and additional fees. He attributed it to the prestigious program and inflation. After all, she'd always been responsible with money. The drive to the university took 40 minutes, during which Tyler reviewed several investment proposals on his tablet. James, his driver of 10 years, navigated through traffic with practiced ease. How's Sarah's college applications going, James? Tyler asked, remembering his driver's daughter was in her senior year. Very well, sir. Thanks to your letter of recommendation, she's got 3 interviews lined up. Talent deserves opportunity, Tyler replied. It was a philosophy he lived by, one that had guided his relationship with Cassandra. The university campus sprawled before them, all ivy-covered buildings and manicured lawns. Tyler straightened his tie as he stepped out of the car. I'll call when I'm done, James. The financial aid office occupied the ground floor of an imposing Georgian building. Inside, the air carried that distinct academic mix of old books and institutional cleaning products. A student worker looked up from her computer, eyes widening slightly at Tyler's presence. His suit probably cost more than her semester's tuition. Good morning. I'm here to see Gloria Conley regarding Cassandra Stone's account. One moment, sir. The student picked up her phone, speaking quietly before nodding. Miss Conley will see you now. Gloria Conley's office reflected her 20 years in academic administration, organized, efficient, and slightly worn around the edges. The woman herself, in her mid-50s with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain, rose to greet him. Mr. Walsh? Her tone carried an odd note that immediately set Tyler's internal alarms ringing. I must say, I'm surprised to see you here. Tyler took the offered seat. Cassandra mentioned some issues with her account. I'd like to clear any outstanding balance and pay her next semester's fees in advance. Gloria's frown deepened. Mr. Walsh, there seems to be some confusion. Cassandra withdrew from the university 3 months ago. The words hit Tyler like a physical blow, but decades of business negotiations had taught him to maintain his composure. There must be some mistake. She's been regularly updating me about her classes, her professors. He pulled out the portfolio. I have her tuition statements right here. Gloria adjusted her glasses, examining the papers. These aren't official university documents, Mr. Walsh. Our records show Cassandra formally withdrew at the beginning of the semester, citing personal reasons. She hasn't been enrolled in any classes since then. Tyler's mind raced through recent conversations with Cassandra, the vague updates about professors he'd never met, the increasing requests for money, the way she'd avoided his offers to take her to lunch on campus. I see, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil beneath. Could you print me a copy of her withdrawal documentation? Of course. Gloria typed briefly on her computer. The withdrawal was processed on September 3rd. She cited family obligations as the reason. The printer hummed to life. Tyler accepted the papers, scanning them quickly. Cassandra's signature, dated 3 months ago, stared back at him. Thank you for your time, Miss Conley. You've been very helpful. Rising to leave, Tyler paused at the door. One more thing, has Cassandra requested any transcripts or records be sent to other institutions? No, Mr. Walsh. No transcript requests have been made. Outside, Tyler loosened his tie slightly, the crisp autumn air doing little to cool his rising anger. He'd built his career on identifying when things didn't add up. Right now, nothing about this situation added up. The drive from the university seemed longer than usual. Tyler sat in the back of his car, mind methodically piecing together the puzzle before him. James kept glancing in the rearview mirror, sensing his employer's unusual silence. "Should we head back to the office, sir?"
No.
Tyler's voice was calm, controlled. "Take me to the Greenwich." It was Cassandra's apartment building, a luxury complex where he'd co-signed her lease 2 years ago. During the drive, Tyler tried Cassandra's cell phone 3 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. Her cheerful greeting felt like mockery now. "Hi, you've reached Cassie. Leave a message and I'll call you back when I can." He pulled up her Instagram profile, something he rarely checked. The last post was from 2 weeks ago, a sunset photo tagged at his beach house in Southampton, the beach house he'd given Amanda for their 10th anniversary. "James, change of plans. Call Kelsey Bennett's number from my contacts." Kelsey, Cassandra's roommate, answered on the 4th ring. "Hello? Kelsey, it's Tyler Walsh." "Oh,
Mr. Walsh."
The hesitation in her voice was palpable. "Is everything okay? I'm trying to reach Cassandra. Her phone seems to be off." Kelsey's discomfort radiated through the phone. "Cassie moved out a few weeks ago. She said she was staying at her mom's beach house." Tyler's jaw tightened. "Did she say why?" "Not really. She just packed up one weekend and said she needed some family time." Another pause. "I thought you knew." "Of course," Tyler lied smoothly. "I was just confirming." "Thank you, Kelsey." After hanging up, Tyler pulled up the beach house's security app on his phone. The system showed regular activity over the past 3 months, exactly when Cassandra had withdrawn from university. "James, take me to Southampton." "Sir? That's a 2-hour drive." "Then we better get started." During the drive, Tyler made several calls, his voice never betraying the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. First to his assistant, "Margaret, cancel all my meetings for the next 2 days. Family emergency." Then to his head of security, "Dave, I need everything you have on Oscar Bright." "Yes, Amanda's personal trainer." "Everything." The Southampton house was a modern masterpiece of glass and steel, perched on 2 acres of pristine beachfront. Tyler had bought it 5 years ago for $7 million, then spent another $3 million on renovations to make it perfect for Amanda. Lorenzo Humphrey, the head of security for the gated community, met Tyler's car at the gate. The man's usual professional demeanor seemed strained. "Mr. Walsh, we weren't expecting you today." "Clearly not," Tyler replied, noting Lorenzo's discomfort. "How long have they been here?" Lorenzo shifted his weight. "Sir? Lorenzo, I've doubled your Christmas bonus for the past 5 years. Don't insult both of us by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." The security guard's shoulders slumped. Mrs. Walsh said not to disturb them. "She's been here with Miss Stone for about 3 months.
And
And Mr. Bright, the trainer, he's been staying here too." Tyler nodded, as if this was exactly what he'd expected. "Thank you for your honesty, Lorenzo. I trust you'll extend me the same courtesy in the future." "Yes, sir." "Of course, sir." The house key felt heavy in Tyler's hand as he stood at the front door. Inside, he could hear faint music and voices from the back patio. He entered silently, his expensive shoes soundless on the marble floors. The entrance hall showed signs of occupation, unfamiliar men's boots by the door, a gym bag that definitely wasn't his. Moving through the house, Tyler noted more evidence of his wife's betrayal. Prescription prenatal vitamins on the kitchen counter, a man's watch he'd never seen before on the master bedroom nightstand. As he approached the patio doors, voices became clearer. He stopped just inside, hidden by the costly designer drapes he'd let Amanda select. "Mom, these flowers would be perfect for the ceremony." Cassandra's voice, excited and carefree. "The colors will match the sunset perfectly. They're beautiful, honey." Amanda's voice carried that warm tone that had first attracted Tyler to her. "But won't they be out of season by then?" "Not if we have the wedding in June like we planned. The divorce should be final by April, and that gives us plenty of time for everything to settle." Tyler peered through the gap in the curtains. The scene before him was like a photograph of betrayal. Amanda reclined on a luxury lounger, her hand resting on a clearly pregnant belly. Cassandra sat cross-legged beside her, a tablet in hand displaying what appeared to be wedding venues. And there was Oscar Bright, shirtless and tanned, mixing drinks at the outdoor bar Tyler had installed last summer. "Baby, bring me that coconut water instead," Amanda called to Oscar. "The doctor said to watch my sugar intake." "Anything for you and our little one," Oscar replied, his tone sickeningly sweet. He looked exactly as Tyler remembered from their brief meetings, 32, perfectly muscled, with the kind of looks that belonged in a supplement advertisement. "I still can't believe how perfect everything's working out," Cassandra continued, swiping through images on her tablet. "The venue deposit is paid. I've got the caterer on hold, and that money Dad's been sending for tuition has covered all the wedding planner's fees." Amanda laughed, and the sound made Tyler's blood run cold. He always was too trusting. "Remember when he actually believed you needed extra money for special seminars last month?" "Well, those luxury birthing classes aren't cheap, Mom," Cassandra giggled. "And neither is keeping your pregnancy quiet from the country club gossips. It'll all be worth it when everything's finalized," Oscar added, handing Amanda her drink. "Your dad won't know what hit him. By the time he figures it out, we'll have everything in place." Tyler had heard enough. He stepped silently back through the house, his mind already formulating plans. Every business deal he'd ever made, every negotiation he'd won, had taught him the value of timing. Right now, timing was everything. In the car, he pulled out his phone one last time, sending a text to Benjamin Boyer, his attorney and oldest friend. "Need to meet tonight. It's about Amanda, and it's worse than we thought." The response came quickly. Usual place. 8 p.m. As James drove them back to the city, Tyler watched the coastal mansions slip past. He'd built his life on calculating risks and recognizing opportunities. Amanda, Cassandra, and Oscar thought they were playing a long game. They had no idea what a real long game looked like. "James," Tyler said quietly, "take the scenic route back. I have some calls to make." The car turned onto the coastal highway, and Tyler Walsh began to plan his response to betrayal. The Oak Room at the St. Regis held memories for Tyler Walsh. He'd closed his first $1 million deal here 15 years ago. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose. He sat in a corner booth, watching ice melt in an untouched glass of Macallan 25. Benjamin Boyer slid into the seat across from him at exactly 8 p.m. In 30 years of friendship, Ben had never been late to a meeting. His Brooks Brothers suit and wire-rimmed glasses projected exactly what he was, one of New York's most ruthless divorce attorneys. "You look like hell," Ben observed, ordering scotch for himself. "I found out why today." Tyler's voice was controlled, methodical. He laid out everything he discovered: Cassandra's withdrawal from university, the beach house situation, Amanda's pregnancy, and the planned wedding. Ben's expression darkened as he listened. When Tyler finished, the attorney pulled out his phone and fired off several texts. "I'm putting my investigative team on this tonight, but they've already made crucial mistakes. Tell me." First, Cassandra has committed clear fraud. Accepting money under false pretenses, using it for unauthorized purposes, that's criminal territory. Ben leaned forward. "And Amanda? Using joint accounts for her affair-related expenses creates a paper trail. My forensic accountants will have a field day." The waiter delivered Ben's scotch and disappeared discreetly. "What about Oscar?" Tyler asked. Ben's smile was predatory. "That's where it gets interesting. I had my team do preliminary digging when you first mentioned him 2 months ago. Something felt off about him. Turns out our boy has a history, 5 previous relationships with wealthy clients' wives. Each ended in messy divorces where he walked away with substantial settlements." Tyler's eyes narrowed. "A professional con man." "Exactly. He finds wealthy, married women, usually through his personal training business, seduces them, convinces them to leave their husbands, then takes them for whatever he can get in the divorce settlement." Ben pulled out his tablet, showing Tyler documentation. "He's careful, though. Never enough evidence to prove criminal intent." Tyler studied the documents, his business mind calculating angles. "They think they're being clever, planning everything in advance, using my money to fund their exit strategy. Most men in your position would confront them immediately," Ben observed. "Storm in, make a scene. That's probably what they're prepared for. Most men let emotion drive their decisions." Tyler took his first sip of scotch. "I want to handle this carefully. They think they're playing the long game. Let's show them what a real long game looks like. Over the next hour, they constructed a plan. Ben's legal pad filled with notes as Tyler outlined his strategy. When they finished, Ben sat back, impressed. "You're not just going to beat them," he said. "You're going to make them destroy themselves." "First step," Tyler replied, "is to secure the company. I've been planning to transfer shares to Cassandra for her 30th birthday. Those need to be protected. I'll create a new trust first thing tomorrow. Ironclad. No possible claim from Amanda or Cassandra." Tyler nodded. "Meanwhile, I'll start documenting everything. Every call, every text, every fraudulent expense. I want a record that will stand up in both civil and criminal court. And Oscar? Let me handle Oscar." Tyler's smile didn't reach his eyes. Every con man has a weakness. His is greed. As they finished their drinks, Ben studied his oldest friend. "You know, most men would be falling apart right now. Most men haven't spent 30 years turning other people's bad decisions into profit." Tyler signaled for the check. "Besides, they've given me everything I need. The only question is how long to let them think they're winning." Over the next week, to the outside world, nothing had changed. He attended board meetings, closed deals, and maintained his usual schedule. Only Margaret, his secretary, noticed that he was arriving earlier and leaving later. "Mr. Walsh?" She entered his office one evening, finding him reviewing financial records. "Cassandra called again about the tuition payment. Tell her I'll handle it tomorrow." Tyler looked up. "And Margaret?" "I'm increasing your security clearance. You'll be handling some sensitive documentation over the next few months." Margaret nodded, understanding the unspoken message. She'd been with him for 15 years, long enough to know when Tyler Walsh was preparing for war. The tuition payments continued, each one meticulously documented. Tyler even agreed to increase them when Cassandra called, her voice sweet and concerned about rising program costs. "Of course, sweetheart," he'd said, recording the conversation. "Whatever you need for your education." Meanwhile, Ben's investigation into Oscar Bright revealed a pattern that was both predictable and damning. 5 wealthy women in 3 different states. Each relationship followed the same script: personal training sessions leading to an affair, promises of a new life together, then a carefully orchestrated divorce where Oscar walked away with substantial assets. "He's good," Ben admitted during one of their evening strategy sessions. "Uses burner phones for communication. Keeps his name off most documents."
But he slipped up with Amanda.
"How so?" "Got cocky. Started using the joint credit card you gave her for emergency expenses to book hotel rooms, buy gifts. Even paid for some of their dates using it." Tyler smiled. It was exactly what he'd expected when he'd given Amanda that card 2 years ago. "Document everything. I want a complete timeline of the affair." The next phase required careful timing. Through his business connections, Tyler arranged for Oscar to be offered a position as fitness director at an exclusive resort in Singapore. The salary was impressive, the benefits package extraordinary. As expected, Oscar turned it down. "He thinks he's got a bigger payday coming with Amanda," Ben observed when Tyler told him. "Classic con man mistake. Getting greedy." "Perfect," Tyler replied. Now we know he's fully committed to their plan. The pieces were falling into place. Tyler maintained his regular routine, but his days were filled with careful preparation. He upgraded the security system at his office, ensuring every meeting would be recorded. He had his legal team review Amanda's prenup, focusing on the morality clause she'd insisted on including, ironic now, given her actions. Cassandra's fraud provided the foundation for criminal charges. Tyler worked with Ben to document every fraudulent transaction, building a case that would be impossible to defend against. The fact that she'd used the money for wedding preparations and Amanda's private medical care only strengthened their position. "The beauty of it," Ben said, reviewing their progress, "is that they've done all the work for us. Every step they've taken to hide their plan just makes our case stronger." Tyler spent his evenings in his home office, watching security footage from the beach house. He saw Oscar coming and going, noted Amanda's growing pregnancy, watched Cassandra's frequent visits. Each observation was cataloged, each pattern noted. "Sir?" James, his driver, spoke up one evening as they left the office. Mrs. Walsh called again about attending the Carter Charity Gala next week. Tell her I'll be there. Tyler checked his watch. And James? Take the rest of the week off. Family time is important. The driver nodded, understanding the subtle warning to keep his own family close. 3 months of careful preparation culminated on a crisp December morning. Tyler's office overlooked Central Park, the trees bare against a steel-gray sky. Everything was in place. Margaret, he spoke into the intercom. Please show my family in. Amanda entered first, elegant in designer clothes that Tyler's money had bought. Her pregnancy was more visible now, though she still tried to hide it behind loose clothing. Cassandra followed, tablet in hand, probably containing more wedding plans. Oscar came last, his practiced confidence slipping slightly in the unfamiliar corporate environment. Darling, Amanda's voice dripped honey. This is a surprise. You've been so busy lately.
Sit down.
Tyler's tone was pleasant, but held no room for argument. We need to talk about family. They arranged themselves on the leather sofa, Amanda between Oscar and Cassandra. Tyler noticed how Oscar's hand automatically went to Amanda's back, a gesture meant to seem protective but really marking his territory. I've asked you here because I care about family, Tyler began, his voice steady. And family should know the truth. He pressed a button on his desk, and the wall-mounted screen behind him came to life. What truth would that be? Amanda's attempt at innocence might once have fooled him. Let's start with you, Oscar. Tyler pulled up the first set of documents. Would you like to explain these? The screen displayed divorce settlements, bank records, and surveillance photos. Oscar's face remained composed, but his hand tightened on Amanda's shoulder. I don't know what you're implying, Oscar started, but Tyler cut him off. 5 wealthy women in 3 states. Each one divorced their husband after meeting you. Each divorce settlement naming you as a beneficiary of various assets. Tyler's voice remained conversational. You're very good at what you do. Until now. Amanda turned to Oscar, confusion breaking through her careful mask. What is he talking about? He's trying to manipulate us, Oscar said quickly. This is all fake. Fake. Tyler pressed another button. Security camera footage from various hotels played silently. Like the rooms you booked with Amanda's emergency credit card? Or the jewelry you bought her using our joint account? Cassandra started to speak, but Tyler silenced her with a look. I'm not finished. While Oscar here was playing his usual game, you two were busy with your own schemes. More documents appeared on screen. University withdrawal papers. Bank transfers. Wedding venue deposits. Cassandra, as of this morning, the police have opened an investigation into your fraudulent use of tuition funds. Want to explain to them how you used that money for wedding preparations and your mother's private medical care? The color drained from Cassandra's face. Dad, I can explain. And Amanda, Tyler continued as if she hadn't spoken. Remember that morality clause you insisted on adding to our prenup? The one that said any infidelity would result in total forfeiture of claims to my company assets. Amanda's hand went protectively to her stomach. You wouldn't. Actually, I would. And I am. Tyler stood, buttoning his suit jacket. You thought you were being clever, planning everything in advance, using my money to fund your escape. But you forgot something crucial. What's that? Oscar's voice held a challenge. I built my fortune by turning other people's mistakes into opportunities. Tyler smiled, and it wasn't kind. Your mistakes have been very profitable. He laid out the rest methodically. The criminal charges against Cassandra. The prenup violations that would leave Amanda with nothing. The evidence being sent to Oscar's professional certification board about his pattern of behavior. You can't do this, Amanda protested, tears forming. I'm pregnant. Yes, you are. With another man's child, while still married to me. That should make the divorce proceedings interesting. Tyler's voice held no sympathy. Now, I suggest you all leave. My security team will escort you out. Oh, and Oscar? That job offer in Singapore? It's still open. You might want to consider it before the certification board receives their documentation. As they were led out, Tyler heard Amanda's voice crack. Oscar, tell me it isn't true about the other women. The door closed on their confusion and recriminations. Tyler sat back down at his desk, examining the city skyline. He'd built his empire by recognizing opportunities. Sometimes, he reflected, the greatest opportunity came disguised as betrayal. Benjamin entered a few minutes later. It's done. The police are waiting to interview Cassandra. Amanda's accounts have been frozen. And Oscar? Let's just say his professional future in New York is over. Good. Tyler turned from the window. Now, let's discuss the divorce strategy. The Singapore Airlines first-class ticket had been booked under an alias. Oscar Bright sat in the terminal at JFK, his designer carry-on containing what remained of his life in New York. His phone buzzed with another message from Amanda, the 20th in 2 hours. He deleted it without reading. 3 days had passed since Tyler Walsh's orchestrated revelation in his office. 3 days since Oscar's carefully constructed world had crumbled. The certification board's investigation was gaining momentum. Former clients were coming forward, and his professional reputation was in tatters. Last call for Singapore Airlines Flight 23. Oscar grabbed his bag. The job offer was still open. Tyler had made sure of that. It was either Singapore or facing the mounting legal pressure in New York. He'd chosen survival over Amanda and their unborn child, just like he had 5 times before. Across town, Amanda Walsh sat in her obstetrician's waiting room, mascara smeared from crying. Her phone showed Oscar's message from last night. Sorry, babe. Can't risk the investigation. Better this way. Take care of yourself and the baby. The doctor's receptionist approached carefully. Mrs. Walsh? Your card was declined. Amanda's hand shook as she pulled out another credit card, one of the joint accounts she'd used for her affair expenses. Declined again. Tyler had frozen everything. Meanwhile, at the district attorney's office, Cassandra Stone faced the consequences of her actions. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Falsified tuition requests, fraudulent use of funds, documented transfers to wedding vendors and medical facilities. Your father's evidence is ironclad, her court-appointed attorney, David Chun, explained. Every transaction, every lie, every step of the fraud. He documented everything. There has to be something you can do, Cassandra pleaded. I'm his daughter. Stepdaughter, Chun corrected. And no, there isn't much I can do. Unless what? Unless you're willing to cooperate. Tell us everything about your mother's involvement. How the plan was developed, who initiated it, where the money went. Cassandra's loyalty lasted exactly 17 minutes. By the time she finished her statement, she'd thrown Amanda under the bus so thoroughly that the prosecutor was smiling. Back at Walsh Investment Partners, Tyler reviewed the morning's reports with Benjamin. Oscar's on his way to Singapore. Ben confirmed. Booked the ticket an hour after the certification board contacted him. Tyler nodded, unsurprised. And Amanda? Trying to access the accounts you froze. She's also called your personal line 8 times.
Let her squirm.
Tyler turned to the window, watching his reflection in the glass. And Cassandra? Singing like a canary. Turns out your stepdaughter's loyalty only runs as deep as her trust fund. Ben shuffled his papers. She's offered to testify against Amanda in exchange for a lighter sentence. Perfect. Tyler's smile was cold. They plotted together. Now let them destroy each other. The divorce papers had already been filed. Amanda's attempts to claim part of the company assets failed before they began. The prenup's morality clause was airtight, and Tyler's evidence of her infidelity was overwhelming. Your wife's lawyer called, Ben mentioned. They want to discuss a settlement. No discussion needed. She gets exactly what the prenup stipulates in cases of infidelity. Nothing. The following weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of consequences. Amanda, abandoned by both her lover and her daughter, faced the harsh reality of her choices. Her pregnancy, once a triumph in her plan with Oscar, became a source of whispered gossip at the country club. The scandal might have been contained if not for an unexpected alliance. Norma and Kenneth Hayes, Amanda's parents, reached out to Tyler directly. We raised her better than this, Norma said during their lunch meeting at Le Bernardi. Her pearls and perfect posture couldn't hide her disgust at her daughter's behavior. Kenneth and I want you to know we stand with you, Tyler. Kenneth Hayes, a retired judge, nodded gravely. Amanda's actions are inexcusable. Using her own daughter in this scheme, betraying a man who's given her everything. Your support means a lot, Tyler replied, genuine appreciation in his voice. The Hayes had always treated him like a son. I know this isn't easy for you. Oh, it's quite easy. Norma's tone could have frozen hell. Our daughter chose to destroy her marriage, conspire with her child to commit fraud, and bring shame to both families. There's nothing difficult about choosing sides here. Their support proved crucial in the social fallout. When Amanda tried to spin her version of events at the Metropolitan Museum's annual gala, Norma shut her down publicly. Darling, she'd said, voice carrying across the cocktail hour. Do stop embarrassing yourself. Your lovers fled to Singapore, your daughter's facing criminal charges, and you're pregnant with another man's child while still married. Perhaps dignity in silence would be best? Cassandra's reckoning took a different form. The fraud charges threatened everything she'd taken for granted. Her reputation, her future career prospects, her lifestyle. Her only hope was cooperating with authorities. In a sterile conference room at the prosecutor's office, she detailed everything. It was Mom's idea initially. After she got involved with Oscar, she said Dad's money could fund their fresh start. I helped them hide the pregnancy, used the tuition money for their plans. The prosecutor, Sarah Martinez, took detailed notes. And you understood this was fraud? Yes, Cassandra's voice was small. I knew it was wrong. But Mom said after the divorce, with Oscar's help, they'd make sure I was taken care of. The same Oscar who's now in Singapore? Cassandra's silence was answer enough. Meanwhile, Tyler's position in both business and social circles strengthened. His handling of the crisis impressed clients and competitors alike. The man who'd turned personal betrayal into professional triumph became something of a legend in Manhattan's upper circles. I've had 3 potential investors call this week, Benjamin reported during their regular meeting. They're impressed by how you handled everything. Crisis management at its finest, they said. 1 year later, Tyler's office had a different view. The company's expansion had necessitated a move to a higher floor, offering an even more commanding vista of Central Park. Success, it seemed, was the best revenge. The morning sun caught the edges of an envelope on his desk, Cassandra's latest attempt at reconciliation. Like its predecessors, it would remain unopened. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. His phone buzzed with a message from Lynn Rhodes. They'd met during the divorce proceedings. She'd been part of Benjamin's legal team. Her brilliance in court had caught his attention. Her integrity in life had kept it. Dinner tonight? That new place on Madison? Tyler smiled as he replied affirmatively. Lynn understood him in ways Amanda never had. She appreciated his strategic mind, shared his values, and most importantly, respected him. Mr. Walsh? Margaret's voice came through the intercom. Benjamin Boyer is here for your weekly lunch. The restaurant they chose offered a view of Central Park's autumn colors. Benjamin arrived exactly on time, as always. The beach house sold, he reported, settling into his seat. Above asking price. Tyler nodded. He donated the proceeds to a charity supporting victims of fraud, a decision that had generated considerable positive press and, more importantly, felt right. How's Amanda doing? Benjamin asked, though they both knew he kept tabs on everyone involved. Struggling with single motherhood. The trust fund from her parents barely covers basic expenses. Tyler's tone held no satisfaction, just statement of fact. Oscar sends sporadic child support when he remembers. And Cassandra? Working entry-level at a small firm in Queens. Part of her plea agreement. Tyler sipped his water. She writes monthly, asking to meet. Wanting to explain. Going to answer her? No need. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions. Their conversation turned to business matters, but Tyler's mind briefly wandered to how much had changed in a year. His company had grown, partially thanks to clients who'd admired his handling of the crisis. What could have destroyed him had instead revealed his strength. That evening, as he left the restaurant, Tyler felt no joy in their suffering. Their punishment wasn't his victory. It was simply the natural consequence of their choices. He'd merely ensured he wasn't collateral damage in their self-destruction. Walking to meet Lynn for dinner, Tyler felt something he hadn't expected. Peace. The betrayal that could have broken him had instead freed him. His old life, built on false loyalties and pretend family bonds, had made way for something genuine. Lynn was waiting at their usual table, her legal briefs set aside as he approached. Her smile held no artifice, her success was her own, and her loyalty had never been bought with his money or position. "Good day," she asked as he sat down. "Better now," he replied, and meant it. Sometimes, Tyler reflected, losing a false family was the only way to make room for a true one. He'd survived their betrayal and emerged stronger, wiser, and, surprisingly, happier. In the end, he hadn't needed to destroy them. They'd done that themselves. His only role had been to ensure they couldn't destroy him in the process. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Manhattan skyline had changed in 5 years, but Walsh Tower stood unchanged. 48 stories of glass and steel, its illuminated logo visible for blocks. The building, once just a floor in Tyler Walsh's portfolio, now housed the headquarters of Walsh Investment Partners, one of the city's most respected financial firms. Tyler stood at his penthouse office window, watching the sunset paint the city gold. At 50, he cut an even more imposing figure than before. Success had added a layer of quiet authority to his presence. Marriage to Lynn 2 years ago had softened some of his edges while sharpening others. "Mr. Walsh?" Margaret Chin, now chief of staff, appeared at his door. Still efficient after 20 years, she'd grown with the company. "Your dinner reservation at Daniel is confirmed, and I have those updates you requested." Tyler turned from the window. "How are our old friends doing?" Margaret consulted her tablet. "Amanda Walsh, now Amanda Collins again, still lives in Queens. The studio apartment her parents' trust fund affords is a far cry from the Upper East Side life she once knew. Her son, Lucas, is 4.5. There's no father listed on the birth certificate." Tyler nodded. His ex-wife's fall from grace had been spectacular and complete. The last he'd heard, she taught yoga at a local gym, her private client dreams shattered by the scandal that still followed her name. Oscar Bright. Still in Singapore, technically, though he moves around Asia frequently. He attempted similar schemes with wealthy expatriate wives in Hong Kong and Tokyo, but your documentation of his pattern made its way through certain channels. He's been blacklisted from most reputable fitness facilities and social clubs in the region. Recent photos showed a man gone to seed. Oscar's looks, once his primary weapon, had faded. Without access to wealthy clients, he'd been reduced to running boot camps on public beaches, living in modest apartments, and occasionally reaching out to Lucas with empty promises and excuses for missed child support. And Cassandra? Margaret's expression softened slightly. The monthly letters had stopped 2 years ago, but they all knew Tyler kept tabs on his former stepdaughter, still at the mid-level accounting firm in Queens. The plea deal and criminal record prevent her from advancing beyond her current position. She lives in a shared apartment in Astoria, takes the subway to work, and recently started dating a high school math teacher. It was a far cry from the life Tyler had once planned for her. The corner office, the trust fund, the penthouse apartment. The daughter he'd loved had died the day she chose to betray him. Benjamin Boyer chose that moment to arrive, his timing impeccable as always. Now senior partner at the city's most prestigious law firm, he'd parlayed his handling of Tyler's divorce into a specialty practice serving Manhattan's elite. "Ready for dinner? Lynn's meeting us there." Tyler gathered his coat. "How are Norma and Kenneth?" "The Hayes are enjoying retirement in Palm Beach. They still haven't spoken to Amanda beyond sending birthday checks to Lucas." Ben checked his phone. Kenneth mentioned they've updated their will. Everything goes to charitable foundations. Apparently, they don't trust their daughter with even an inheritance anymore. The drive to Daniel took them past Amanda's old yoga studio. Through the window, they could see her leading a sparsely attended class. Her designer yoga wear had been replaced by generic athletic clothes, her carefully maintained appearance showing signs of strain. She tried to reach out again, Ben mentioned. Wanted to discuss renegotiating the divorce settlement. Nothing to discuss. Tyler's tone was final. The prenup had been clear. Infidelity meant forfeiture of all claims to his assets. Amanda's betrayal had cost her not just her marriage, but her lifestyle, social standing, and relationship with her parents. At Daniel, Lynn was waiting at their usual table. Her recent appointment as federal judge hadn't changed her. She remained the brilliant, grounded woman Tyler had fallen for during his divorce. Her pregnancy was just starting to show, a fact that filled Tyler with genuine joy rather than the manipulation he'd felt from Amanda. "I saw Cassandra today," Lynn mentioned as they settled in. "At the courthouse. She was filing paperwork for her firm." Tyler raised an eyebrow, inviting her to continue. She looked different, older. "When she saw me, she asked if you'd received her wedding invitation." "I did." Tyler sipped his water. The invitation sat unopened in his office drawer, like all of Cassandra's previous attempts at contact. "She's marrying that math teacher," Ben added. "Small ceremony in New Jersey. Amanda can't afford to help with the wedding," and Oscar stopped responding to her messages entirely. The conversation turned to happier topics: Lynn's pregnancy, the company's expansion, Ben's recent engagement. Yet Tyler couldn't help but reflect on how completely justice had been served. Oscar Bright, the charming predator, now lived in self-imposed exile, his cons exposed, his lifestyle reduced to hustling for clients on Asian beaches. His good looks had faded, his charm had soured, and his dreams of wealthy women's fortunes had crumbled. Amanda Collins, once the elegant socialite, taught yoga to bored housewives in Queens, living on a meager trust fund and sporadic child support. Her pregnancy, meant to be leverage, had become a burden. Her son would grow up without a father, her parents' disappointment a constant shadow. Cassandra Stone, the beloved stepdaughter, had lost not just her inheritance but her future. Her criminal record and public disgrace had closed doors that Tyler's influence had once opened. She lived a modest life, punching time cards and sharing apartments, the consequences of betraying the man who would have given her everything. Meanwhile, Tyler's life had flourished. Walsh Investment Partners had tripled in size. His marriage to Lynn brought genuine happiness. The baby on the way would be raised with real values, not the false loyalty that had destroyed his first family. "Sometimes," Lynn said, reading his thoughts, "karma needs a little help." Tyler smiled, taking her hand. "Justice is about consequences. They chose their path. I just made sure they couldn't escape where it led." Later that night, in their Upper East Side penthouse, Tyler watched the city lights while Lynn worked on case files. His phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Amanda had tried to use his name to get a store credit again, only to face embarrassment when the manager knew their history. 5 years had proven that the best revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about letting people live with the consequences of their choices. Oscar faced the loneliness of a con man exposed. Amanda endured the humiliation of a schemer whose plots backfired. Cassandra lived the modest life of someone who traded birthright for betrayal. Tyler hadn't needed to pursue revenge. He'd simply made sure justice was served, cold and complete. His new life, the company's success, his marriage to Lynn, their growing family, wasn't built on the ashes of the old one. It was built on the wisdom gained from surviving betrayal. The city sparkled below, and Tyler felt the familiar sense of peace. He'd lost a false family and found a true one. Success, he'd learned, was the best revenge, but happiness was the best reward. Lynn looked up from her files, smiling at him, and Tyler knew he'd won more than justice. He'd won freedom from people who'd never deserved him, making room for those who did. In the end, karma had needed his help, but justice had served itself. He'd simply made sure everyone paid their fair price for betrayal. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.
I observed John walking into the bar and greeted him with a grin. Despite the early hour and the almost empty bar, I hoped John would join me. It had been a while since we hung out, as John was busy with something in his life and couldn't make time. Worried, I tried calling and emailing, but I couldn't reach John. I even attempted to visit John's home and office, but he was never there. I hoped his issues were resolved, but the anger on his face indicated otherwise. I stood up to shake hands but was suddenly knocked to the ground by a strong punch from John to the jaw. My head hit a nearby table as I fell. I muttered a shocked exclamation and spat out a bloody tooth. John stood over me, ready to hit again. He accused me, saying I knew and that my wife and I were laughing at him, bet that we enjoyed how trusting he was. My swollen jaw and the likely concussion made it hard for me to concentrate. I couldn't make sense of John's words. The only word I could say was, "What?" He continued to strike my ribs and legs. John shouted about my wife and me helping Amanda cheat. Bar patrons intervened, grabbing John and pulling him back. I, stunned and puzzled, looked on. The bartender called the police, and luckily, a patrol car was nearby. The ambulance took longer to arrive. While John was detained, I, helped by strangers, was assessed and placed on a gurney for transport to the emergency room. I lost consciousness before the ambulance even left, drowned out by the siren. To me, it felt like a short, bad dream. When I woke up, I realized I was in a hospital. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. As I regained consciousness, Emily, my wife, entered with tears. She expressed her apologies and explained that she had left briefly to call my parents. I sat up a little and tried to gather my thoughts when Emily sat down and took my hand. Sleep and medication reduced the swelling, making my words more understandable. I recounted how I didn't know what happened, how I'd never seen him like this before. He said something about Amanda cheating and us causing it. His words made no sense. Emily's tears continued to fall as I spoke. Maybe I heard wrong, but he seemed to think we were making these trips so Amanda could cheat on him. This is crazy. Why would he think of something so crazy? I fell silent, looking at Emily. Lowering her head, she whispered an apology. I didn't understand why she was apologizing. He hit me, thinking we were helping her cheat. It sounded stupid. Why would he think we'd do something so bad? What kind of terrible people could do this to someone they care about? I looked at Emily as she raised her head. Something was off in her behavior. Maybe I was out of my mind, but her actions were suspicious since she was usually vocal about her opinions, especially about relationships with close friends. She might have been shocked because it wasn't what she expected. As I was about to ask her what was going on, the doctor came in and said my jaw was bruised, not broken. If I didn't have a headache, I could leave with Emily tonight. My head hurt, but something was clearly wrong with Emily, so I lied to the doctor that I felt fine to leave. Time passed. Nurses worked diligently with documents, denying me the chance to ask Emily. They were silent on the drive home. As Emily drove, we didn't even turn on music. We were silent the whole way. I needed answers, but by the time I got home, I was exhausted and just wanted to sleep. After changing clothes, I fell asleep. Emily curled up next to me, hugging tightly. After my shower, I joined Emily in the kitchen. Still in pain, but with a clearer head, I saw Emily deep in thought. Finally realizing I was there, she asked, "How are you feeling now?" "Okay, but I have a small Hitachi, and everything hurts. I just need a day of rest, and I'll be fine. I still can't figure out why John went so crazy." I took a sip and continued. "Did Amanda say anything to you? Have you talked to her since yesterday to find out what happened to him? I chatted with her a bit yesterday, and she was as shocked as I was about what he did to you." I looked at my wife while she spoke. Her response seemed measured, but there was something more. She appeared sad, which was unusual given her typically upbeat personality. She seemed reserved. I thought maybe the attack had shaken her more than I initially thought. I reached out, taking her hands in mine. "It's okay, honey. I'm fine. I've come to my senses." Soon, my shirt was wet from her tears. We hugged with the words, "I love you." Holding each other tightly, we both called into work and spent the entire day at home. Something besides physical pain bothered me. None of it made any sense. John's sudden attack, accusing us of helping Amanda cheat. Emily's sudden change to being timid. Her vague answers to basic questions. I wanted to press her about her conversation with Amanda, but Emily was on the verge of tears. I thought now was not the best time for a confrontation. Despite both staying home, we seemed distant. I sat in the backyard, watching the wind move the trees and grass, thinking I needed to understand why John attacked me. We had been friends for a long time, and I had never seen John lose his temper without a good reason. I thought about my wife's words and couldn't recall her ever saying that John's wife hadn't cheated and had only apologized for the attack on me. We needed to hear John's side of the story, and the best way was from John himself. Although there was a risk he might attack again, it seemed like the most direct way to understand what happened. I would then talk with Emily about our roles and what made John think we were betraying him. Emily informed me that she planned to briefly stop by work to pick up her laptop, as she would be home for the week and didn't want to fall behind. After she left, I decided to visit John. On the way, I tried to call him but couldn't reach him. I hoped John was out of prison, so I took a taxi to his house. If we were lucky, we could figure out what caused the mess and get back to normal. Upon reaching John's entrance, my stomach dropped when I saw Emily's car. Instead of ringing the doorbell, I walked to the back until I heard Emily talking to Amanda. Emily was no longer silent. She was furious. John had overheard her talking about setting up a date and having my back, a conversation not meant for him. This explained why he attacked me. According to Emily, John heard her say that she'd cover for her, and Tom and John would be busy, so she could go out without arousing John's suspicions. It seemed John took it to mean that I knew what was going on. Emily claimed she would have warned me if she knew. It wasn't until I was attacked that she realized John knew. He used his phone call to express his hatred towards her, choosing to rot in prison rather than live with her. Emily wanted to sympathize, but it was Amanda who left John. Emily's support for Amanda caused serious problems in her marriage, and things could worsen when I found out. She knew it was wrong, but hoped for a short fling. Instead, Emily's support led to the worst. Now she must deal with the consequences because of Amanda, who couldn't keep her actions in check. I expressed my concerns to Emily about my marriage being in serious trouble once I found out. She tried to reassure me, stating that I never cheated, and if needed, she would tell me that. I couldn't see her, but I could tell from her voice that she closed her eyes and rubbed her forehead as she spoke. Despite Emily's attempt to reassure me, I argued that I had lied to her, helped her scam my best friend, and as a result, he attacked me. I doubted that I could make her believe anything I told her, especially given her role in the situation. Emily insisted that I didn't do anything wrong and that I should know this. Frustrated, I told her that it didn't matter, and I had no idea how to fix the situation. If I didn't have a solution by the time I found out, my marriage would probably end just like hers did. I couldn't believe what a fool I was for helping her. I warned her that if I lost it, I would never talk to her again. Emily, trying to console me, mentioned that I had always been a loving wife, and Tom knew how much I loved him. I sarcastically replied that I was such a loving wife that my support of my promiscuous friend resulted in my husband getting his butt kicked by his best friend. She insisted that I didn't understand the situation, and that it would be years, at best, before I regained trust. I couldn't help but feel like a fool, wondering if Tom would ever trust me again. Having heard enough, I calmly returned to the street. My resilient nature allowed me to remain calm and focus on the task at hand. While waiting for a taxi, I realized I needed to start setting things right. But first, I needed to make sure I had all the facts. It was time to visit a friend. The passed-away sergeant and detectives appeared confused when I expressed my intention to pay bail, but after years of dealing with strange incidents in police work, they simply shrugged. They smirked at John's look when he saw me pull him out and laughed openly when I told John to just shut up until he was told to talk. Confused, John followed me and silently got into the car. After I gave the driver the address, we sat in silence until we arrived at the crime scene. The same bartender was on duty, nervous and obviously afraid of trouble. I quickly calmed him down, asking for a bottle of Glenmorangi's Signet, 2 glasses, and to be left alone. As we moved to a corner booth, I poured a generous portion into both glasses and pushed it towards John. We both drank and exchanged a sarcastic toast to the first drink. I looked at my friend. I explained to John that I didn't know about this setup. I just wanted to hang out and have a good time with him. They used our friendship against him, knowing I would never agree to this, so they started their lousy scheme without my knowledge. John looked at me carefully, able to tell when I was talking nonsense. It was clear from the expression on his face that now I was being honest. Once the initial anger had passed and he had cooled down in prison, John was able to think reasonably about what I told him. He expressed how she tore his heart out, and my wife Emily helped her. I shared my frustration, stating that I gave our marriage everything I had, only for it to be a waste of time because she chose to follow some strange man into bed. I refilled the drinks and simply listened to my friend while John expressed his frustration and anger about his marriage. When the whiskey and verbalization of the event eventually calmed John down, He apologized for the attack. John admitted he probably should have talked to me first, but he couldn't help himself. The revelation that his marriage and our friendship were over made him feel out of control. As much as it hurt that she cheated on him, the thought of me stabbing him in the back was even worse. Cheating was bad enough, but the idea of me laughing at him hurt even more. He sincerely apologized. I grinned, sipping my whiskey. "It's okay. I probably deserved it for having an affair with your sister sometime during the Christmas holidays." When I asked how he found out she was cheating, John shook his head. He explained that a few weeks ago, he felt something was wrong in his marriage, so he started to pull away. He eventually concluded that she must be cheating, preparing to hire a private investigator. While he was at work, his phone started showing video and audio from the Ring camera on the front porch. The motion sensor went off while Amanda was picking up an Amazon package. During a phone call, she made an appointment to have closeness with someone and mentioned that I and Emily could help her, just like before. It didn't sound like I didn't know what was going on. It sounded like I was actively participating in the deception. I stared at him, not believing his eyes. 2 marriages had ended because John's wife couldn't close her legs and forgot about the camera, so Emily cheated too. Tom hadn't thought about it, but it made sense that she would do the same thing. She covered for John's wife. Actually, he was almost convinced that Emily didn't cheat. He heard them talking before they picked John up, and that convinced him that she wasn't out for a walk. Considering Emily's fidelity, Tom questioned why John wanted a divorce. Maybe it would be easier to forgive her if she had slept with someone else. The situation was even worse for him. The problem was not betrayal, but trust. Not only had she repeatedly lied to him about her actions and John's wife, but she had used their friendship to cover it up in the most evil way possible and make him an active participant in the deception. He wondered how he could stay married to her if he couldn't trust her anymore and his best friend hated her. He believed that trust could be restored, clarifying that he didn't trust his wife at all. However, he acknowledged that Emily loved him, prompting John to ask if he was sure this was the end. I expressed my belief that trust, cemented by time, was not stronger but weaker. While people may forgive, they never forget. He had no intention of spending the rest of his life hoping that, in years to come, this would be just a faded memory. I asserted that Emily knew what she was doing, and there was nothing she could say to solve the problem. It was time for him to leave and start over. John envied his friend for having an amicable divorce, and they would both remain on good terms. John joked about trying to find a Mexican brothel to get Amanda the right job for her skill set and pay less child support. I laughed, expressing awe at John's ability to see life as it is. It felt like his world was ending, but he knew that in the long run, he would be okay. He went home and talked to Emily, and since she already knew what was going to happen, it would likely be relatively smooth sailing. She cried and begged for counseling, but she understood that he would not be able to come to terms with her behavior. I recognized that it was out of character for her, and she knew it. It was time for him to take a new direction and look at his life with fresh eyes. The chapter in his marriage to Emily was over. Second story. This literally occurred this morning. I'm sharing it here in the hope of venting and gaining some perspective because I've been extremely upset all day and unable to process this rationally. My wife is currently 8 months pregnant with our child, and we live next to another married couple in their late 30s. I've never been a fan of the guy next door. I've always found him to be invasive, and his overly friendly demeanor often seems like he's prying and overly clingy. I'm not sure if my feelings about him are influencing my judgment in this situation, or if this incident simply confirms my suspicions. I left for work as usual, but then decided on the way there that I wasn't in the right mindset, so I called off work. I made a pit stop for breakfast and then headed home to surprise my wife. It took me about 40 minutes in total. When I arrived home, I entered through the back door and was greeted by an unexpected sight. My wife and our neighbor sitting on our living room couch. She was facing him, fully clothed, but with her shirt pulled up to expose her very pregnant stomach. He was facing her, using both hands to rub lotion on her stomach. They both froze in the moment, and my wife asked why I was back so soon. She explained that our neighbor had stopped by to borrow a toolbox while she was applying lotion to her skin, and had asked if he could feel the baby to which she had agreed. I immediately told him to leave before I physically removed him, and he promptly exited. I tried to maintain my composure and talk to my wife to get the whole story. She claimed that our neighbor's wife is infertile, news to me considering he's never stopped complaining about his personal problems, and he simply wanted to feel the baby. That's her version of events, and she's sticking to it. However, I'm not satisfied with this explanation. In my view, there's a significant difference between allowing someone to feel the baby for a brief moment and inviting them into our home to rub lotion on her stomach. If it had been a close friend of ours, I might have understood, but I've never liked this guy, and my wife has never shown any particular closeness to him beyond polite greetings. She's not the type to let just anyone touch her. It's also rather convenient that he showed up so early, right after I left for work, shortly after his own wife had also gone to work. Furthermore, he's never asked to borrow anything from me before, so it strikes me as odd that he urgently needed a toolbox around 9:30 in the morning. I have doubts about my wife's story. This is the first time my trust in her has wavered. Her explanation just doesn't add up. When I mentioned that I might inform his wife about the incident, she strongly discouraged me, suggesting I shouldn't blow it out of proportion. If it was innocent, why should it be blown out of proportion? Even if there's nothing more to it, I'm not comfortable with what I witnessed. I'm not okay with him touching my unborn child in our home without me present. I understand it's her body and her choice, but I'm not okay with this situation. Feeling the baby kick would be one thing, but he was casually sitting on our sofa, applying lotion to her stomach while they engaged in a private conversation. I'm struggling to find a way to convey my disbelief without causing stress that could be harmful to her or our baby. I don't want to start a fight during this stage of her pregnancy, but my mind is racing and I'm unsettled by what transpired. Any advice would be welcome. Update. I'm providing this single update in response to the overwhelming support and numerous requests to do so. I didn't anticipate such a response, and I've seen references to my situation on other subreddits, so I feel compelled to address it. Many of you were correct. Congratulations. After reading through all your responses, talking to friends, and reflecting for a day, my wife maintained her story, apologized for making me uncomfortable, and assured me it wouldn't happen again. Bob, our neighbor, also left a handwritten note in the mailbox, specifically apologizing. However, I still didn't feel at ease, and the consensus was that I should talk to my neighbor's wife, whom we'll call Sally. So, that's exactly what I did. I waited for my neighbor to leave for work, then called my mother-in-law to take my wife out for lunch and a girls' outing, giving her a chance to get away from the house. I left for work as usual, but then called off again and stayed with a friend. Around noon, I received a text from my wife, informing me that she was with her mother-in-law and would be back by dinner time. When I returned home, I went to Sally's door and knocked. Bob decided to inform Sally that I had kicked him out and made a scene, stating that I didn't want either of them to speak to us anymore because I was angry about his assistance to my wife. To my surprise, I discovered that both Sally and Bob had been visiting my house while I was occupied elsewhere for the past few weeks. My wife had approached Sally and Bob, asking if they could help with chores she couldn't manage alone due to her pregnancy. Sometimes Sally assisted with small tasks, or simply spent time there, sometimes both, and at times just Bob. My wife told Sally that I was aware of it, and was fine with their help, which is why she was baffled by her husband's false claims of my anger. Sally showed me the text she sent to my wife, she had her number, not mine, seeking clarification about whether she was still welcome over, but my wife hadn't responded. Since I don't interact with Sally and Bob frequently, she assumed her husband was telling the truth. Sally also confessed that she noticed my wife and Bob becoming close friends, attributing it to the pregnancy, and dismissed it as his way of coping with their infertility. I described what I had witnessed to her, including the tool incident, which turned out to be untrue. We both reached the same conclusions. We both shed tears, shared a hug for the first time, and alternated between denying and accepting the situation while trying to calm each other down. We took a walk around the block together and devised a plan. She intended to call Bob at work and inform him that my wife had messaged her, confessing to an affair between the two of them to see how he reacted. I returned to my friend's place and began experiencing severe panic attacks, fearing I had made a terrible mistake, ruined my marriage, and worried that I might be wrong. A little later, I received a call from my wife, yelling at me to find a way to leave work and come home, so I hurried home. Bob had called her and told her what Sally had informed him. She accused me of being crazy and a terrible person, even considering leaving me. I was in the midst of a panic attack, thinking I had destroyed my life over nothing, while also trying to calm her down for the sake of our baby. On impulse, I told her that if she was leaving, I would still request a DNA test. That's when everything changed. Her entire demeanor shifted to pleading, begging, apologizing, hyperventilating, and holding me. She asked me how I had found out while denying that anything had happened. I reassured her and asked if she would talk to me if we went for a drive. She agreed. I drove us to a parking lot and we talked. I told her that if there was any chance of anything happening, she needed to tell me what had transpired because I already knew quite a bit. She confessed that Bob had made advances a few times before she became pregnant. There was uncertainty about the paternity of our baby. Bob had occasionally visited and acted as a dad on rare occasions, just in case it's his. They hadn't been intimate for months. She suggested we could move away, emphasized that the baby was ours no matter what, and claimed that Bob had manipulated her. She admitted lying to Sally to justify Bob's visits for daddy duties. I asked her if she would stay with her mother-in-law for a few days while I calmed down, and she agreed. I took her home, helped her pack, and dropped her off. I've packed up my essential belongings and am staying in a friend's basement. My friend spoke to my wife on my behalf, telling her that if the baby is mine, I'll take responsibility, but if it isn't, it's her concern. In any case, I'll be filing for divorce. My friends took my phone and removed my presence from social media. She has been attempting to reach out to my friends, but they have told her to stay away. I talked to my boss, who has been understanding. The last update I received from Sally was that Bob hadn't returned home and wasn't responding to her calls and texts. I feel like I've lost everything. In less than a week, my life has completely fallen apart. The only thing keeping me going is the slim chance that the baby is mine. I have nothing else. I woke up today feeling disappointed that I woke up at all. I've never felt so isolated, and I haven't come to terms with any of it yet. I'm praying for the first time in my life, hoping to stop feeling this way and find the strength to move forward. Final update. I'm not sure if anyone will recall my initial posts, as they were removed, and I haven't received an explanation despite messaging the mod team. I'm uncertain if this update will be deleted as well. If anyone wishes, they can use Removed It to access the posts if they aren't visible on my profile. I continue to receive messages regularly requesting an update, so this will be my final one. In a condensed version of my very lengthy story, a week after my previous update, my soon-to-be ex-wife gave birth to our child, and I was present at the hospital. I am indeed the father. The weeks following my last update were extremely challenging, with drama added by both sides of our families and friends. Fortunately, I've received immense support from the majority of people in my life, as well as from all of you. My wife and I decided to sit down and discuss matters after her discharge, in my friend's basement with my friend nearby in case I needed support. She came over, and we expressed everything we needed to say. I vented and said many hurtful things, some of which I regret. She spent the entire time apologizing and pleading for me to take her back, hoping to give our family a chance to endure everything that transpired. This continued for about an hour, until I realized there was nothing more to be said, and I no longer felt any romantic love for her. She acknowledged that our marriage was over, and we agreed to prioritize our daughter above all else. We planned to work out a custody arrangement amicably and eventually become more active co-parents once our wounds heal. She has the potential to be a great mother, but she failed as a wife. My sole focus now is to get myself in the right mental state to be the best father possible. We also intend to sell our home eventually, but for now, I'm staying in an apartment. Sally is ending her relationship with Bob. He's currently residing with his mother and continues to avoid direct communication with Sally. She mentioned that the last message she received from him conveyed his understanding of his actions, an apology for hurting her, an expression of love, and a willingness to accept a divorce without contesting it. Sally is finding it challenging to cope with everything and lacks a support system. As a result, we are forming a friendship, primarily two individuals who have been hurt leaning on each other for support. She also intends to begin therapy. Just to clarify, I have no intentions of having anything beyond a platonic friendship with Sally. She's a wonderful person, but that's the extent of it. I still haven't fully come to terms with my new role as a parent. Mentally, I had already prepared myself for the possibility that the child might not be mine. I plan to attend parenting classes and spend more time bonding with my daughter during her early years. It's a daunting prospect, but I am genuinely happy. I understand there's a lot of work ahead and more emotional healing to do, but I am in a stable place and I am a father. That's what matters most. Third story. My wife and I have been married for 6 years. We met soon after our previous marriages ended and quickly fell in love. It's been fantastic. We have our disagreements like any couple, but we've had a wonderful life together, and for the first time, I felt genuinely loved. Then, 3 weeks ago, I discovered she cheated on me. Some context. I've been dealing with anxiety and depression. In the last 6 months, I noticed something wasn't right, and at my wife's urging, I sought help from a new doctor to explore different medications. Her daughter also deals with anxiety and depression, so my wife manages a lot. I understand it's tough, but she mentioned that it had become increasingly challenging for her to cope with my depression in recent months. I didn't feel like going out or doing much, and I probably wasn't the most enjoyable person to be around. I admit I didn't put in as much effort as I should have to improve my mental health until it seemed too late. My wife has a group of friends she attends rock concerts with, which isn't my scene, so I'm fine with her going without me. It's her time with friends, and I get some time to myself. I prefer being at home. But one of the guys in her group is the person she cheated on me with. She claimed they had been good friends for 3 years, and only in the month before she cheated did she start flirting with him. She chose to spend a weekend alone by the lake to clear her head, claiming it was tough living in a home with constantly negative vibes. That weekend away was when she cheated. I should have seen it coming. She dislikes being alone, so her idea of a solitary weekend should have been a warning sign. When I found out, my mind was made up. We need a divorce. Collect your things and leave. I want no part of you. For the first couple of days, I was hurt, angry, and resolute about starting afresh. My wife pleaded for me to come back. She said marriages can withstand this. She doesn't understand why she did it, and she wants to reconcile. I wasn't convinced. But as the initial shock faded, I reflected on how these 6 years have been the best. This was unlike her. She was the last person I'd imagined would cheat on me. Until recently, she was an incredibly loving and caring wife. So I reached out, about 5 days after discovering the truth. She came over, and I expressed my wish to work things out. I wanted her to return home to see if we could salvage our relationship. But she said she didn't want to. She explains there's something clearly wrong for her to act this way, something wrong with the marriage and something off in her mind. She mentioned lining up an apartment and planning to move out, uncertain if we can salvage things. So, I ask her if it's because she's still in touch with the friend she had an affair with. She clarified she's not leaving me for him, but she does have feelings for him, making it impossible for her to focus on us as long as those emotions linger. That's where I stand, heartbroken, feeling hit twice. I learned from a mutual friend yesterday that the friend she's been talking to has stopped flirting, reduced communication, and she's disappointed. It seems like a midlife crisis, seeking attention and serotonin while we're apart. I'm approaching 7 weeks since the D-Day, and the pain persists. With the guidance of a friend, I realized I'm codependent on my wife. My happiness relied entirely on her. She was my whole world. When she left, I felt like I had lost everything. Every day, I'm striving to make myself stronger. Acknowledging my codependency issues, I'm actively working on becoming more self-reliant. Currently, I wouldn't be good for anyone, as I'd likely cling to a new partner, setting myself up for more pain. For those aiming to reconcile, it's essential to introspect deeply first. Understand why you truly desire reconciliation. Great memories and a happy marriage are valid reasons to attempt overcoming betrayal, but ensure it's not solely because your spouse was your entire emotional support. We all need to stand independently emotionally. That's my lesson. I'm unsure how my story will conclude. I'm not even entirely certain I still want to reconcile. I've initiated no contact with my wife to focus on what's most important. Me. Update. Approaching 11 weeks post. D-Day. I'm about to sit down with my wife and compel her to decide. I don't desire divorce, but she's left me with no alternative. I can't continue living like this. From the start, I sensed she wanted to explore dating and freedom while keeping me as a backup plan. After a conversation where she shared details about her dating life, it became apparent. She deliberately hurt me, making it clear she was pushing me away. The following morning, I realized it's over. I can't have our marriage hanging in uncertainty while she seeks a replacement. To me, this isn't about working things out. She mentioned missing what we had while dating, but I strongly disagree. I can't tolerate this any longer. I wish to end it outright, but my therapist suggests confronting her with a choice. I'll ask her to halt communication with other men and try to mend our marriage, or she's choosing divorce. This approach prevents her from playing the victim, as she has a say in this. I don't want a divorce, but I refuse to live in this manner. She's shown no interest in reconciling over the past few weeks. Instead, she's sought my help for things she could have asked the guy she's dating. I'm furious and deeply hurt. I'd say there's less than a 1% chance she wants to reconcile. I expect a struggle where she avoids mentioning divorce to sidestep being seen as the villain. She'll likely argue that I haven't given her enough time and that I'm pushing too hard for us to reconcile. Nearly 3 months is ample time to decide whether to stay in a marriage. This turmoil began after my wife spent a weekend with another guy. Despite my willingness to reconcile, she chose to live independently. Despite enduring 2 major blows, I hoped for a positive resolution. Not all stories have a happy ending, it seems. I hope the excitement of dating again is worth sacrificing our marriage. Update. After 11 weeks of coping with my WS's indecision, I finally gave her an ultimatum between the guys she was dating during her newfound freedom or our marriage. She chose the guys. Days later, she claims to have second thoughts. After a week of on and off discussions about reconciliation, I grew tired of the back and forth, and once again, asked her to choose between me and the dating life. For the second time in 11 days, she opted for her freedom. I'm fully aware I was foolish to believe she'd genuinely want to fix things. I let my codependency influence me for 3 months, but it's truly over now. I'm restarting the divorce process and removing her from my life. The hardest part for me right now is grappling with the harsh reality of a failed marriage and being rejected by the woman I love, twice. How did you manage to get past the thought of your WS with someone else? She considers this guy her boyfriend, and he'll be at her family Thanksgiving. It's the same family that used to spend Christmas Eve at our home. Now they'll be with him. I'm absolutely certain I'm making the right choice. There's no doubt. But the pain of being betrayed and her essentially choosing this guy over me, it's excruciating. I don't know how to get through this. Yesterday marked the final hearing for our divorce, precisely 5 months from when I discovered her infidelity. As we left the lawyer's office, she hugged me and wished me happiness. I echo that sentiment. We parted ways for the last time, both with tears in our eyes. She was the one person I was certain I'd spend my life with. That didn't happen. So, while this is a new beginning, an opportunity to find someone who will treat me and my daughter as we deserve, it's a somber time. The pain of her actions won't fade quickly. Rebuilding trust will be the most challenging. She took more from me than she realizes. Cheating is the cruelest way to convey not loving someone anymore.
I secretly went to my wife's office to surprise her on our 10-year anniversary, only to greeted by this. Unthinkable. With the rain we have had, we have crazy hours trying to make up time that we missed. So I work 12 hours on the days it's nice, sometimes a little longer. If it's raining when I get up, I don't go in. Some days we get sent home when it starts, too dangerous. I usually hit the gym for an hour or two. Thursday we start at 6 a.m. Mid-morning starts to rain hard. We go home. I go to the gym as usual. I cut the workout short and head downtown to see my wife Megan to give her flowers and make plans for dinner that night if possible. We really haven't seen much of each other this week. I went to bed around 9 p.m. She wasn't home. Called me earlier. She's working late. Not unusual for the past month. I stopped and got some flowers and went into her building about 12:30. Nicole was at the receptionist desk. I told her I got here later than I wanted and asked if she could put the flowers on Megan's desk. She said, "I don't think they went to lunch yet. Why not drop them off yourself?" She buzzed the door to get back to the offices. The place was deserted. I went to her office. The door was closed. I always walk in unless the receptionist tells me she's in a meeting. I walk in and some guy is standing behind her, nuzzling her neck. She's reaching back over his head. She's giggling only as she can, saying, "We gotta get this done."
I am gut punched.
I slammed the flowers down and said, "Happy anniversary," and walked out. I didn't hear what she said. Nicole said goodbye and left. Made it to the elevators and out the building. Then my phone started ringing. I boiled my eyes out all the way home, went into the garage, pulled my camping gear out of the rafters, and took off. I drove about 2 hours to a state park. I had no idea what to do. I just had to run. I hiked a trail we've been on in the past, about a 3-hour hike. I don't drink much, so I had no booze. I just sat there thinking. Looking back, I am glad I was in a rush.
Normali, I bringa 45 cal.
With me camping, we have black bears, which generally scare off, but get aggressive if hungry or cubs are around. The way I was feeling, I might have eaten the barrel that night. My phone was blowing up for Megan, so I had turned it off. I left the park to get reception and turned it on to see my good friend called. I called him back. He said Megan called him to check on me, make sure I didn't do anything stupid. We talked a bit, told him I got to thinking this through, and would catch up on Friday. So while I am thinking about this, I go over our marriage from the beginning to see what I missed. We come from completely opposite backgrounds. My grandfather raised me with my mom. He taught me about life. He had a little saying about everything. He told me marriage would be the hardest job I ever had. He had to work on it every day. God, I miss him. We did not have much. Heard Mom and Grandpa having many discussions about bills. They worked hard, and my brother and I did not miss out on anything we knew of. Megan was born into money. Not overly rich, but very comfortable. Went to a great college, always had great clothes, a new car, etc., and she is beautiful. 11 out of 10 beautiful. I would joke with her if she coughed about the silver spoon getting stuck in her throat. We met and started dating. I was dumbfounded how such a woman would ever be with me. We dated quite a while before she told me about her parents and lifestyle. Our friends called us the model couple because they thought we were so good looking we had to be models. Families were not as kind. Afraid of the differences economically would come into play. Her dad and I started to get along, but her and my mom took some convincing. We graduate and get her first job. We plan on getting married. We work out between us that we would expose each other to our lives that we live. I took her white water rafting. She took me to the symphony. We went ziplining. We went to an art opening, etc. We agreed that we had to experience the other's interests. She was really enthused about the more physical things we did. I kind of like this symphony and such. I own 2 tuxedos now. I look back and do not see any red flags. Her first 2 jobs she quit because the men all tried to get in her pants. She was paraded out in front for photo ops. Invited a conference as when other newbies were not. At dinner at a conference, a partner tried to get her drunk, then tried to force himself into her room that night. She quit. The next job, the same thing. Quit again. This 3rd job has women as some of the partners, and none of that BS is in her workplace. She seems very happy. We seem very happy. So now, Friday, I am home. I called her. Asked where she was. Back at work. I, being in a smart-ass mood, said that the marriage is taking second place for her job. She responded since I would not talk about what she was doing. Fair enough. She will be home in an hour. So I wait. I want to save our marriage. If I am lacking in providing, then I want to fix it. I want to ask why, of course, but I cannot accept an I don't know answer. Here's the update. Wife and I had a marathon talking session on Friday late night. I started by asking that she be honest in all answers and be complete. Do not tell me half-truths that have to be asked several different ways to get a complete answer. She agreed. I started with why. Answer. I don't know. Kind of what it was expected. We went around and around on this. Finally, I said, how many times did you have sex? Started to dodge, but when I let out a sigh and shook my head, she said 6 or 7 times. That started things rolling. I kept my cool. How long? Last 3 weeks. Back to why. Could not give an answer. You still love me? Yes. Saying it because we are done trying to save the marriage? No, with some conviction. Do you find me attractive? Yes. Why? Still can't answer. Am I not giving you something you were looking for? Here she hesitated, but quickly recovered. I knew I was onto something. Could not crack the nut though. Finally, about midnight, I was tired. I said, Megan, you are an intelligent woman. I cannot believe you cannot articulate the why I am asking about. She started crying, saying she is trying to answer my questions. I said, okay, enough for tonight. Time for bed. She started to walk toward the door. I asked where she was going. To my parents' house. I told her that this is our house. I'm not asking you to leave. She's up crying at that point. I said, we are not divorced or separated. That may come, but for now we need to be together until we sort this out. We actually slept in the same bed. Not sex in case you were going to ask. I am up almost most of the night. I am reading some of the comments in DM. Had some great comments and back and forth with a few people. One told me that women generally marry up in social status. We were unusual, maybe second thoughts. One suggested that maybe I was right and that I was not fulfilling something for her. But one told me that there was a post a few days ago describing this scenario, but from the women's view, asking what she should do. We could not find it on the subs you looked at. /surviving infidelity /infidelity. So I pulled up Reddit and put in Megan's account and looked at her history. Bingo. She was the one who posted. So this morning, bright and early, we start again. I start out, why? Same answer. We go around getting annoyed. Then I say, did this guy challenge you intellectually? The look on her face was priceless. He read my post. For the masses, she described how she caught the feeling when they first kissed in a make-out session in a hotel. She left. Next morning, after I left for work, she hightailed it over to a hotel to put an end to it. Then had sex. It continued at least up to her posting. I am sure a couple of days later, I discovered them. She also was weighing whether to leave. Then says this is moving way too fast. She needs to separate from the guy. So I present this to her that she thinks I'm a dumb hick.
No.
She was attracted to him because this project they are on is his idea. She feels she is getting passed by and needs to up her game. The stimulation from this led to the attraction and the rest. Now, I don't know. I know she was sincere. Now the floodgates open. We have a great dialogue through the issue. Mid-afternoon, she wants a break. She leaves for her parents. So I'm writing this update and knock on the door. Okay, gotta say I'm really tired now. There stands Megan's mom. I tell her Megan is on the way to their house. She knows she wants to talk to me. She has never been to our house by herself. She has never that I remember talked to me privately. She says she is not here to sway me in any way. She would accept any decision I make. But she wants to tell me her story. She was married once before Megan's dad. I knew that. The man she married was the love of her life. Didn't have much. She met her husband and they caught some feelings. Before they cheated, she told the first husband they were done. Divorced. When she married a new guy, he had some money but was an up-and-coming executive. Couple years go by, not happy, made a mistake. All husband moved on and is married. She gets pregnant. As Megan goes into depression, was actually institutionalized. 2 years later, pregnant with brother. Repeat cycle. Couple years later, sister is born. Repeat. No more kids, she's fixed. Everyone thought it was postpartum depression. I guess it was, but it mirrored her ex also expanding his family. To this day, she knows where he lives, his kids' names, etc. She has never gotten over leaving a love of her life. She sees how I am with Megan. She sees she is my love. She saw it when she quit her first job, how I took care of her. She got up and left, saying nothing else. All right, next cheating story. My wife has been cheating since our first year anniversary. Spoil alert. Me and my wife were married in August of 2019. Things weren't easy. We fought a decent amount, but never to the point where I thought we were in danger of losing each other. We both had our struggles along the way. I have been in active recovery for a porn addiction for over 6 years, while she was starting her therapy journey to address childhood incestuous abuse. I thought we were on the right track. When August 2020 came along, our relationship still had its rough spots, but it was the first year of marriage. It was supposed to be this hard, right? I believe that even though we weren't where we were at least in a better spot than where we started. A couple of weeks into August, my wife became more and more distant. She spent more and more time with her male friends from work. I began to have concerns, but every time I broached them with her, she would lay my fears to rest. You are the one who struggles with lust, not me. I am never one-on-one. I just make better friends with guys, etc. Despite my misgivings, I figured she was right. After all, I was the one who struggled with porn. I needed more boundaries than she did, right? We had had the talk early on in our marriage that we wanted to set the boundary of never being in a one-on-one setting with someone of the opposite sex. We wanted to be above reproach. While she did acknowledge this conversation, she didn't think it was necessary for her. That her struggles weren't with sex, and I should be okay with her hanging out with male co-workers. They are all Christian guys working at a Christian restaurant. What could happen? In mid-August, we celebrate our anniversary. During this time, we decided to go on a large group trip where we would rent an Airbnb in the Northern Peninsula. During this trip, a lot of our closest friends came with, including the guy I would come to learn she was having an affair with. During the trip was when my suspicions really ramped up. She was very distant from me and spent more and more one-on-one time with this guy despite my misgivings. Things really came to a head when I came back one night and realized they were out alone in the lake swimming together. It had gotten to the point where even some of her other friends called her out on her behavior. Fast forward on August 30th, D-Day happened. I had been very suspicious by now, and every night when she came home the questions of whatever you've been, who have you been with, what in the suit? I didn't think she was having an affair, but I told her that I believed she was at risk for having an affair. But no one could spend this much one-on-one time in intimate settings with someone else and not develop feelings. Anyway, on the 30th, we were leaving church, and she was again acting very distant. I decided to ask her straight up, "Are you invested in this marriage?" That's when she replied, "We need to talk." She took me to a park and told me what has been happening. She told me it has been going on since the anniversary. She said she loves this guy and does not plan to stop seeing him. That was just about a month ago. In our few interactions since then, she has made it very clear she does not want back in the marriage, even if this guy wasn't in the picture. She told me that if our marriage wasn't already crumbling, that she wouldn't have gone looking. My brain knows that is bogus, but my heart still thinks it is my fault. In the meantime, she has continued to see this guy, post on Instagram about how much she loves him, and tell her friends about how I should have fought for her more. Something worth noting is that she is a manager at this Christian restaurant, and the guy is a new hire. Apparently, her boss is aware and is chosen to forgive her, aka covered up and go against all their values. I never thought I would get a divorce, but the choice is being made for me. Even if she did want to work on things, I'm not sure I could. I'm living with my parents right now, and this is all just too much sometimes. I still wear the ring, not ready to take it off. I know she doesn't, but still. There are times when I feel excited for the future, but other times when just doing basic tasks is too hard. I can't sleep, too many graphic dreams, and I'm just trying to get by. I do have things to keep me busy, and I do have a new job starting in October, which will be helpful, but that is where I'm at. I've found it difficult to find people who can relate. I am thankful for this community. And here's our first update. Going to see a lawyer on Tuesday says it should be a simple process from a logistical standpoint at least. I've gone back to seeing my therapist once a week. She is a counselor who is Christian, but not a Christian counselor, aka doesn't answer everything with just pray about it, or God works in mysterious ways, or any of that BS. We'll bring that stuff into the session if I ask him to, but not uninvited. The restaurant she works at is Chick-fil-A. She always talked about how their Christian values set them apart from other places. And here's the next update. I don't know what the proper format is for posting updates, so someone feel free to correct me if I'm doing it wrong. I found out that she has been telling people that the reason we are separated is because I was abusive. I talked with my lawyer, and he said the only way that would hurt is if she filed for a PPO. And the only way she could do that is if she had concrete evidence. That means no going to her work, contacting her, etc. Yesterday, I got the ring back, which was really difficult. My lawyer will send her documents to sign, and if she doesn't contest anything, we can move forward with scheduling a hearing, which is about a 2-month waiting period. And another update. 30 days till court hearing. A little bit of context. She had locked herself out of the apartment. We are separated, living in different places, but she texted asking for my key to get in. She said she was using the landlord's copy, needed mine. I haven't given it back. One last little foo, I suppose. Or maybe that is the last thing I'm holding on to. Like if I'm surrendering that, I'm surrendering the relationship. She's paranoid by her own admission, terrified I'll break into the house. She told me she was buying a gun. I've never been violent with her, never laid a hand on her, and I've assured her numerous times that I wouldn't resort to violence. That being said, the idea of her being afraid, albeit misplaced fear, feels good. Knowing that she knows I have access to her house if I really wanted to, that I still have a way in. I'm choosing to hold on to that, to nurse that. Maybe I just don't want to let her go all the way. Maybe I still love her. I know that's wrong, but I felt so powerless the entire relationship. So yeah, that's where I'm at. The more I think about it, look into it, the more effed up I realize it is. Today's journal was longer than normal. With the hearing coming up, even though I know she is a narcissist and this is the best move, it's still hard and hitting me. Here we are, friends. Didn't edit it or try to organize my thoughts, but this is where I am at today. 11/17/2020. These are the days when it is the worst. When I'm at work and there is literally nothing to do but research and file. The time I have to think. These are the times when I would normally text my wife. Text her telling her how bored I was. Casual crap. What's up to? How's work? Anything new? Blah, blah, blah. I miss that. The regular stuff. The day-to-day stuff. I forgot how lonely it is to be single. There, I said it. I'm single. 31 days until the court date, and I'm scared. I am really freaking scared. Talk to Scott about the key. Explain that all behavior has a function. This is the only thing I have control over. It makes sense. I never had control during the marriage. I don't have control during the divorce. Handing over the key is giving it up. 100% giving up. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go to work.
I'm struggling.
Really struggling. Having trouble finding something to look forward to. I don't know if I'll come back from this. Scott told me to reclaim my past. Reclaim my reality. Not wait for someone else to validate my experience. That's really the reason I'm writing the letter. To get acknowledgement from her. For her to give me permission to have my reality. I don't let myself have it if it can't be justified or validated by someone else. I'm on a roller coaster. I'm in a glass box of emotion.
I'm insane.
The silence, as long as something is going on at every moment of the day, then the pain is manageable. I'm not busy. I'm with my thoughts. With my brain. I hate my brain. I feel between a rock and a hard place. I've begun to really dig into the research. Right now, I have over 26 peer-reviewed articles related to narcissism, childhood sexual abuse, and its relation to infidelity. Attachment styles and infidelity, infidelity in the first year of marriage, sexual abuse leading to narcissism, narcissism and infidelity, long-term impact of betrayal trauma, characteristics of cheaters, archetypal hypocrites, characteristics of people most likely to be cheated on, etc. Maybe one day I'll make sense of this. Maybe this will be the biggest freaking research paper I've ever done. Maybe I will be able to conclusively come away from this experience and say, this is why it happened. I'm going to try and perform an autopsy on the corpse that is our marriage. I won't lie, my intention is to definitely point out her fault, to unequivocally convince the jury of my innocence and her role in disintegrating our marriage.
I'm heated.
As I cool down, the hope is that I will be able to better look at my stuff, too, because it's there. As much as I hate to admit it, it is. I think the main reason I feel a need to prove the pain is because she has yet to truly validate it. I have not had a single conversation with her where she did not attempt to explain away, gaslight, justify, twist the truth, displace, or rewrite the narrative. I've been on lawyer mode, on a witness stand. I spent all of last year being cross-examined, and even though we have cut off contact, she is still a leech in my mind. I find myself doubting the institution of marriage, doubting values that I've held just as fundamental truth for so long. I don't see the point in waiting until marriage. I don't see the point in taking the step. I don't see the point in taking the risk. Maybe I do, but the risk and potential for failure is too great. I was certain, freaking certain she was the one. I thought I had dodged a bullet with my last fiancée. Maybe I just traded her on in for a rat poison. One is gross, the other one kills you. Who knows? The one could have been worse, probably would have been, but the point is my judgment is screwed. How can I be certain of anything when the thing I was 1000% sure about is a lie? My mom asked me if I ever saw myself getting married again. Moving on. Right after she asked, she realized it was too soon for the question. Don't get me wrong, it definitely was. I'm not ready to remotely consider moving on, but if I had to answer now, I would say no, I am not getting married again. What am I going to tell everyone? Hey guys, welcome back. This has been hell. This has been the worst. Being in a situation where there is even a risk of this happening again seems unfathomable. It's like having an explosion strapped to my chest. Even if there was only a 10% chance of it going off, there's still a chance. I wasted a freaking ball or wedding on her. It's supposed to be a one-and-done thing.
No.
Right now, I don't think I'm meant for marriage. I was certain. My certainty is shaky. My certainty is unreliable. My certainty is nothing more than I guess. I'm certain of nothing. I'll never be certain of another woman. Marriage doesn't require certainty. It requires faith and trust. Yeah, I freaking know. But I believed in us and trusted her so much that it surmounted to something equivalent of certainty in my mind. I trust too much.
On a sunny Sunday, I drove my wife's car to purchase a couple of new lawn chairs. To accomplish this, I decided to listen to the program called This American Life on the NPR channel and got absorbed in the captivating stories they were presenting. While driving, I heard about a book on the radio that grabbed my attention, and I had to jot down its title. With one hand on the steering wheel, I searched in the center console with the other hand, feeling around for the handle. Among various items that appeared from the depths beneath the CD cases, like a crumpled honey wrapper, a folded Starbucks drink package, a quarter, and even a folding comb, I found something quite unexpected: a package of contraceptives. This surprise startled me, causing me to momentarily loosen my grip on the steering wheel, nearly veering off the road. Moments like these stay etched in memory, replaying in slow motion. In each frame, a red Toyota passed me on the left, driven by a red-haired girl with an earring. Returning my focus to the road, I noticed the speedometer showed 34 miles per hour. Dust particles had settled on the dashboard, a reminder of the passage of time. Anticipating a green traffic light, I felt a sense of assurance. Beneath the windshield, crushed beetles offered evidence of previous journeys. However, when I retrieved the CD case, its rough edges unexpectedly scratched my wrist, catching me off guard. These unusual sensations disrupted my train of thought, making it difficult to think clearly. Amidst this confusion, a question emerged. Had I ever asked myself, is this mine? Had I ever contemplated infidelity? Thoughts, unlike images, tend to be messy and bewildering. Perhaps I worried about guilt stemming from inadvertently revealing a potentially dark secret. Or maybe fear overwhelmed me. It's possible I harbored doubts about having done something wrong. I meticulously combed through every corner of the car, starting with the glove compartment and ending in the trunk. I even checked all the doors and scrutinized the seats. Finally, my efforts paid off when I found a small package hidden beneath the passenger seat, cleverly concealed in a plastic bag from a supermarket. Gently unwrapping it, I discovered a compact, spiral-bound notebook. My heart raced as I opened it and began examining its contents. The first 2 pages were blank, piquing my curiosity. As I turned to subsequent pages, I encountered a series of cryptic lists. One of the entries was crossed out, capturing my attention. Under different circumstances, I might not have paid these lists any mind or pondered their significance. However, a familiar pattern started to emerge: the schedule of my work-related trips. The crossed-out date signaled the day I fell ill and had to unexpectedly stay home. Discovered earlier, the contraceptive hinted at a message directing my thoughts toward the hotels I frequented during my trips. Holiday Inn, Quality Inn. As I pieced together the clues, everything pointed to a planned meeting at the Travel Lodge or Holiday Inn the following day at precisely 1:30 p.m. This revelation left me with a mix of shock and disbelief. I desperately hoped that my assumptions were incorrect, that there was some other explanation. yet the unmistakable presence of the contraceptive seemed to confirm the worst-case scenario. I had to confront a harsh reality. It turned out my wife had been having an ongoing affair for 4 months. This shattered any hope that it was an isolated incident. The evidence indicated she had indeed cheated on me, and with serious intentions. A lingering suspicion grew that she maintained a secretive and elusive list. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Deep down, I sensed I was on the brink of losing her, and conflicting emotions raged within me. On one hand, I couldn't deny the resentment and anger that had built up, deeming her undeserving of my attention. On the other hand, love still resided in my heart, and letting go was incredibly difficult. The daunting task of confronting her lay ahead, and the thought of facing this painful truth filled me with fear. Questions swirled in my mind. How could I move on? In that moment, I shook my head, closed my eyes, and realized I was utterly lost. Doubts consumed me. Was she involved in something illegal? Did she have a hidden business on the side? Why the need for such secrecy? What if her affections had shifted to another person, even another woman? Uncertainty and confusion overwhelmed me, ensnaring me in a tangle of emotions. Lacking sufficient information about the situation, I felt entirely unsure how to approach her and initiate a conversation. Thoughts of what she might say raced through my mind. Would she express remorse with words like, "I'm sorry, my love. I never wanted you to find out. Please find it in your heart to forgive me. I must leave you because I've made a grave mistake." Or would there be accusations and blackmail in her explanations, claiming she was compelled into an affair with an unknown person? Perhaps she'd shift the blame onto me, asserting that my absence and suspicions of infidelity had driven her to seek revenge. The potential scenarios seemed endless, and I couldn't predict what she might actually say. In the midst of this crisis, a startling discovery was revealed to me. She found out about my infertility, and in search of pregnancy, slept with my own brother. Just this thought sent goosebumps down my spine, emphasizing the depth of secrets and deception that were embedded in our relationship. Am I infertile? Why not reveal everything? I have supernatural powers as a vampire. I work undercover as a secret agent, and the nature of my mission is strictly classified. But, dear, I want you to understand that I am doing this only for the sake of my country. I carefully returned the contraceptive and the notebook to its place. When you are overcome by deep sadness, the lower part of your face seems to be attracted to the earth, as if gravity holds it more strongly. I was at a loss what to do or think. I had read enough about infidelity to understand that a woman can have an affair because of her own misfortune, and this suggested that perhaps I was to some extent to blame for this situation. My sense of self remained intact. It wasn't the end of my life. I experienced mixed emotions, resentment, anger, sadness, confusion, and in those dark hours, I wondered if I had made the wrong choice in life, if I was inherently flawed, if I needed to turn into someone else. That night, I put on the mask of a familiar person. When Sherry tried to start a conversation about a book she was reading, I pretended to be focused on work, saying that I had a difficult week ahead and I couldn't get rid of anxiety. "I'm sorry, my love, I feel a bit withdrawn." She retired to the bedroom to immerse herself in reading. Meanwhile, I was cleaning the dishes and doing household chores, even stayed here until she fell asleep. The next morning, I hurriedly got dressed, left the house, and drove without leaving the car. Made the morning call. By 10 in the morning, I drove up to the old Holiday Inn. Unlike modern establishments, this hotel allows guests to park their cars next to the rooms, bypassing the entrance to the hotel through the lobby. In moments of despair, you have to act outside the box. I must admit that I don't know how to cheat. Instinct compels me to tell the whole truth, and this tendency, as a rule, benefits me in my work, the whole truth. And this tendency, as a rule, benefits me. In my work, sharing information creates a sense of connection, allowing others to genuinely get attached to me. Or maybe they just pretend to be friendly in order to gain additional knowledge. Ideally, I hope that everything will happen according to the first scenario. However, I have long since given up the idea that business contacts can be considered real friends. "Hello?" I greeted the receptionist. "I think my wife has to meet someone here at 130. His reaction was subtle. I suspect that she may be having an affair, and I would like to find out the identity of her companion. A skeptical expression appeared on his face. "I just want to see the surveillance footage." His doubt was obvious. I'm afraid I can't grant you access, sir. With all due respect to you, there are doubts about your intentions. This hotel is responsible for the safety and privacy of its guests, not for your personal investigations. There is a possibility that you may pose a threat to this woman. I apologize for assuming that she is your wife without getting confirmation. As my first boss said, when I enter uncharted territory, additional time should be allocated, since rarely everything happens as expected. If my life was a detective novel, I could slip a $20 bill to the desk clerk unnoticed to gain access. But I am not one of those who resort to such tactics. On the contrary, as an experienced negotiator and manager, I'm able to find mutually beneficial solutions. The receptionist and I struck up a conversation, and soon he realized that it would be beneficial for the hotel if I watched the security monitors in his presence, which would ensure transparency of my actions, realizing that if I leave, I will be able to monitor the territory outside the hotel, and he will be powerless to prevent any unpredictable actions. Such a scenario could lead to legal consequences for the hotel. So it became obvious that in order to reduce the risk, it was necessary to keep me on the hotel grounds. I find great satisfaction in reaching agreements that satisfy both sides. As a gesture of goodwill, I treated us to lunch at Subway, choosing for myself a classic sub with tuna and for him, chicken with bacon and ranch. After parking the car on the other side of the street, I went back to the hotel and we watched the local news together at noon. During our communication, I openly shared information with him, discussing details related to the notebook and contraceptives. During our conversation, he talked about his personal life, shared stories about his family, including his nephew's imprisonment and his father's health problems. While enjoying the sandwiches, we started a conversation about fat, calories, and various eating methods, during which he mentioned his attempt to follow the Atkins diet. We agreed that the most difficult aspect of any diet is maintaining the achieved weight. It was as if we quickly became friends, knowing that our paths would most likely never cross again. Exactly at 125, she arrived. After parking the car at the back entrance, the farthest from the street, she remained sitting inside, engrossed in a telephone conversation. I could clearly see her face through the monitor. After finishing the conversation, she looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror, absently twirling a strand of hair in her hands. Suddenly, at exactly 13.30, an elegant blue BMW stopped next to her. On the driver's side, a tall gentleman with a shock of brown hair got out of the car. He walked easily to the hotel entrance, handed over the room key, and looked back in the direction of my wife. In response, Sherry opened the car door, took one last look at her reflection, and confidently walked towards the man waiting for her. As she passed him, he gently wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her to him. The hotel door closed behind them, sealing their private moment. The idea of an affair is easy to understand. We all used to be fond of it. But with effort and time, you can recover from such an affair by acknowledging your pain and recognizing the underlying causes you can choose to return. The most destructive outcome would be a connection with my worst enemy, a betrayal so cruel that it would make me feel as insignificant as the dirt on someone's shoe. It becomes almost impossible to escape doubt about the honesty of your own views or the presence of a fatal flaw in decision-making, leaving you attracted to false personalities. Perhaps you were deceived by Delilah herself, sweetly communicating with you while plotting your demise. This situation neither aligns with the best nor the worst options. It resides in the murky middle, where complexity deepens. It encompasses two betrayals, one by your wife and another by someone else. If the other party is merely a golf buddy or someone of little significance, say the husband of one of your wife's friends, their betrayal carries limited weight. They are just another disrespectful person. However, if this person turns out to be your father or brother, a close family member, their betrayal might hurt even more than if it were your wife. After all, a wife isn't related by blood, and though you might feel so angry that you could end up physically fighting with your brother, you might ultimately prioritize your family ties over your marriage. She started an affair with your best friend Tom, betraying not only your friendship, but also your marriage. Tom had been your best man at your wedding, just as you had been for his younger brother at his own wedding. You'd known Tom for 20 years, since you were 7 years old. He understood how important Sherry was to you and how committed you were to your marriage and trust. This betrayal deeply hurt you and weakened your once strong relationship. However, The understanding between you and the receptionist was clear. You shook hands, confirming that your friendship wouldn't be overshadowed by minor misunderstandings and that drink and basketball wouldn't create a divide. You crossed the street and headed for the golf course, where you got into your car and started hitting golf balls. With each swing, your ordinary clubs felt like perfectly balanced extensions of your body, and the wooden pieces became sharp and precise. Hitting the 4-iron shot was particularly satisfying as the ball soared into the air. These fleeting moments of clarity are what make golf both challenging and exhilarating. Feeling a surge of confidence, you decided to call Tom at home, greeted his wife Peg, and invited them to join you for dinner. You set up a meeting at Cyros for 7. After making the call, you felt like a winner. Just like you had dominated with the 4-iron, you called home and left a message for Sherry, letting her know you'd be early and arranging to meet at Kairos at 7. You also left the same message on her mobile phone to make sure she got it. When you arrived home at 6, you noticed Sherry was already in the shower. Her gym bag was open on the floor, tempting you to explore its contents. You couldn't resist your curiosity, hoping to find something noteworthy. Unfortunately, you found nothing of interest. You called out to Sherry, expressing your intention to take a shower as well, realizing this might be your last chance with her before things got worse. Uncertainty hung over your future, and you were determined to convey your love for her. Sherry, breathing heavily as if she'd just finished a vigorous run, snuggled up to you. Her satisfaction was clear in her voice as she praised the experience, and you both agreed to make such moments a regular occurrence. Her passion and genuine interest in you reassured your doubts, and you felt a deep connection in that moment. As you contemplated your next moves, you decided to meet Tom and Peg as planned. At the restaurant, everything appeared normal, and the bond of friendship remained strong among the 4 of you. But the weight of the impending conversation hung in the air. As you broached the topic, Sherry sensed your anxiety and offered her support by placing her hand on yours. You asked what they would do if they found out their best friend had betrayed them, or if their spouse was having an affair with their best friend. The room fell silent, and tension grew. Tom, Peg, and Sherry struggled to find words as they grappled with the seriousness of your questions. Tom's silence spoke volumes, revealing the depth of his mistake. Peg understood the truth and reacted swiftly, delivering a powerful blow to Tom's face. The moment seemed to stretch out as you savored it, reminiscing about past memories and reflecting on the current situation. You couldn't help but notice that Tom's usual witty responses were absent, replaced by the stark reality of his actions. Tom's hesitation and Peg's reaction underscored the seriousness of the situation. You turned to Sherry and posed the question of how you should respond to her unfaithfulness, leaving the decision between a violent confrontation or a peaceful divorce hanging in the air. The room remained silent, emphasizing the weight of your words. Tom realized the gravity of his actions, and Peg understood it perfectly. Tom began to explain, but before he could finish his sentence, Peg intervened with a powerful blow to his face. Time seemed to stretch again, allowing you to savor the moment and contemplate the significance of this turning point. Memories flooded your mind, reminding you of the innocent conversations you had with Tom in the past. I imagined us playing ball and fighting the cool wind behind a sturdy oak tree. In an instant, a lot of conversations overwhelmed me. Disputes about the greatest runner, about the technique of unbuttoning a bra, the eternal question of who is better to be a Formula One racer or a movie star. There were curses in the air. "Oh, you bad speaker." The sound of Peg's hand stroke him again startled him. In the midst of this horror, I was still holding Sherry's hand. Her grip had frozen. Suddenly, Peg jumped out from behind the table, grabbed her purse, quickly turned on her heel, and hurriedly left. Surprisingly, I remained calm. "Could you pay the bill?" I asked Tom calmly. "You can take the leftovers," I said to Tom, getting up and turning to face my wife. "Come on," I said, and Sherry gracefully slipped out from behind the table, following me to the car. As we walked, the first words that escaped Sherry's lips were full of remorse. "I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry," I answered coldly. "Very nice. Are you sorry you got caught? Are you sorry that you hurt me?" My anger began to build. "Sorry you ruined our marriage? I'm sorry I seduced one of your best friends. I'm sorry that I ruined your old friendship. For what? What exactly are you sorry for?" I demanded, feeling the full weight of my disappointment. Sherry's tears began to flow, but not in streams, but in real drops running down her cheeks. I kept driving, trying to stay calm. When she plucked up the courage to speak, I raised my hand, signaling her to stop. She instinctively touched her forehead and closed her eyes, choking on sobs. I stopped the car. "You can come out," I said firmly. Sherry looked out the window and realized that we were in front of her parents' house. "No," she said almost with a groan. "Come out. Get out or I'll throw you out," I warned, tapping the steering wheel impatiently. Disappointment gripped me, and I suddenly flushed. "Get out!" I shouted, refusing to look at her as I drove away. When I arrived home, my initial plan was to pour myself a strong drink and mindlessly watch TV until sleep overcame me. But then something clicked in me. I opened Sherry's closet, overcome with a lot of emotions and uncertainty, and I was fixated on her clothes. I started tearing off hangers with a barbell, desperately grabbing buttons, trying to tear the seams. Anger grew within me, and I headed to the kitchen, returning with a chef's knife. Fueled by passion, I forcefully cut her clothes, slicing through the fabric with the knife. Drink had taken over me, pushing me to act on impulse. I impulsively lit a fire in the fireplace and tossed our wedding album into the flames. In a fit of rage, I collected a handful of her underwear one by one and tossed them into the fire, captivated by the sight of each piece catching fire. Afterward, I settled into an armchair and watched a classic football match absent-mindedly until exhaustion finally overtook me, and I fell asleep. Those hours were agonizing, filled with a sense of significance in every passing moment, yet none of them brought any comfort. I felt crushed, drawn toward the dark side of my emotions. I now understood the power of autosuggestion and the destructive tendencies of jealousy. I saw that beneath the surface of love, anger could run equally deep. The following morning brought a sense of calm. The house appeared tidy, except for the mess in the bedroom. The remnants of Sherry's torn clothes lay scattered on the floor around her closet. I left them there, along with the remains of the fireplace, the charred remains of our wedding album, the burnt bras, and the remnants of a nightgown. My mind felt empty, devoid of coherent thoughts. Driven by anger, I went to take a shower, letting the water cascade over me. In that moment, memories of our intimate moments from the previous night flashed through my mind. I realized that my life had undergone an irreversible change, yet strangely, I didn't feel strongly about it. In light of recent events, I decided to have a direct conversation with Tom about our situation. I called him on his mobile phone, and to my surprise, he answered and immediately apologized. He admitted that it all began as harmless flirting that spiraled out of control. He assured me that there was nothing more to it, but he did confess to running into her at the mall once, and from there, things escalated. It was an impulsive mistake he deeply regretted. Listening to him, I sensed that he wanted to say more, so I patiently waited. It became clear that neither of them had intended for Peg and me to find out about their affair, but they couldn't resist their attraction, and it continued despite their guilt. In that same moment, a decision solidified within me. I knew exactly what to do in this situation. "Tom, our friendship is over because of this. I don't care what happens between you and Peg. You're out of my life completely. You no longer exist in my world. Goodbye, Tom." With those final words, I abruptly ended the call while Tom was still speaking. In that moment, when Tom genuinely expressed his regret for hurting me, I felt the sincerity in his words. He had succumbed to his own weaknesses and chosen the wrong path. The betrayal ran deep, and it was clear that our friendship could not be salvaged. I was left to fend for myself because Tom had chosen to betray me. Without informing Sherry's parents, I headed to their house. When I knocked on the door, her father greeted me with a sad and anxious expression. "How are you holding up?" I asked, concerned, as I stepped onto the porch. He partially closed the door behind him and let out a heavy sigh. "She told us," he admitted, his voice tinged with darkness. "You know she loves you, right? You should know that." He searched my eyes for some sign of understanding, shaking his head. "How foolish she is. It's unbelievable that I resort to such derogatory expressions when it comes to my own daughter. Foolish. I can't believe I'm saying these words about her, but it's foolish." The meaning was clear despite his scattered thoughts. He was fully aware of what he was saying. "Sherry made a mistake. A significant one, but still just a mistake. With effort and time, we can get past it. Foolish. So foolish. The name-calling might persist, but we have to overcome it. Can I come in? I asked Sherry's father. My foolish daughter is in the kitchen. As I sat down at the kitchen table, I struggled to find the right words. Sherry looked pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Her mother stood silently beside her, and her father sipped water from a glass in small sips. Finally, I took a deep breath and outlined my decision. Here's what I've decided, I began, and Sherry nodded, her face reflecting the pain I had felt the day before. I'm going to file for divorce. There's no point in discussing the possibility of saving this marriage. The weight of her betrayal hung in the air. You betrayed me, our marriage, and everything I believed in you. I've made a firm decision. I don't want to be married to you anymore. The pain you've caused me is immeasurable, and I doubt you'll ever fully grasp the extent of what you've done. I know you love me, and it's because of that love that I'm choosing to divorce you. I want you to feel the pain of losing me and live with that burden. In a moment of emotional turmoil, she made a guttural sound. It's really unsettling how similar the sounds we make in moments of pain are to the sounds of pleasure. But let me clarify my further intentions. Are you listening, Sherry? I asked, seeking some form of acknowledgement. Sherry didn't respond verbally but lowered her head in silent agreement. As soon as the divorce is finalized, and that won't happen quickly, we can consider the possibility of rekindling our relationship. But there's one condition. You must prove that you're a good person, and then we can start dating again. I looked into Sherry's eyes, recognizing the sadness and pain etched on her face. I want you to understand that I once loved you, and now I'm giving you the opportunity to make me fall in love with you again. But know that I'm not going back. This marriage is now history. If you truly love me, you'll do your best to win me back. Sherry nodded, her lips tightly pressed together as she contemplated the weight of my words. During the divorce, Tom was no longer considered my friend, and I hardly spoke to Sherry. We sold our apartment, and Sherry moved back in with her parents. While I searched for a new apartment, I ran into her father only a few times, and our conversations were casual and superficial. I didn't inquire about Sherry, but in these brief meetings, I made it clear that our agreement still stood. The divorce was officially finalized in just 4 months, a little less time than Sherry had spent in an affair with Tom. Peg reached out to me twice after the restaurant incident, but I told her about the divorce from Sherry and made it clear that I would only consider rebuilding our relationship if she distanced herself from both Tom and her own actions. To my surprise, Peg didn't attempt to contact me again. Instead, through mutual acquaintances, I learned that she and Tom sought counseling for their relationship, while I embarked on a vacation filled with adventure, engaging in activities like hiking and rock climbing in Chile. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as physical activity served as a therapeutic escape, clearing my mind completely. Upon my return, I found a message from Sherry on my work answering machine, inquiring about our conversation. As I rode in a taxi home from the airport, I decided to call her. I dialed her number and greeted her with a casual hello. The whole affair with infidelity and divorce had forced me to be more direct in my actions. I wondered whether she would call me. After informing her of my recent return to the city, I asked if we should continue the conversation. I proposed meeting and asked when she would be available. "What are you doing this afternoon? Would you like to grab a drink?" I suggested. When I arrived at the agreed-upon location, I saw her waiting in a booth, placing a glass of water in front of her. I took a seat and joined her. Our eyes met, and I nodded in greeting. I chose not to waste words, getting straight to the point. "Shall we discuss this further? Is there anything you want to say or suggest?" I asked, genuinely interested in her intentions. "I want to give this a chance," I added, emphasizing my desire to move forward. Curious about her own desires, I inquired, "What do you want?" Leaving no room for ambiguity, I sensed the tension building within her. She closed her eyes for a moment, seemingly pondering her next words. "Should I apologize? What should I do?" she finally asked, seeking guidance on the way forward. "I should also mention that I'm expecting a baby," she whispered, her words causing my eyes to immediately fall to her stomach. It became evident that her dress was deliberately loose, probably to conceal the pregnancy. The problem was, I didn't know whose child it was. After this revelation, Sherry began to cry. I was in such shock that I couldn't find any words. I silently took her hand and escorted her to a clinic for a DNA test. I was too bewildered by this unexpected news to think rationally. "Does Tom know about your pregnancy?" I asked as we drove to the clinic. In a trembling voice, she replied that Tom had ignored her message about the pregnancy. I was ready to explode with anger at that pathetic excuse for a man. We remained silent for the rest of the journey. After the DNA test, I took Sherry back to her parents' home, and I awaited the results with a sense of anticipation. Almost all night, I lay awake, unable to sleep, tossing and turning in bed. In the afternoon, I received a call from the clinic informing me that the DNA test results were ready. I quickly hopped into my car and drove to the clinic, and what I discovered was incredibly distressing. I was not the father of the unborn child. I sat in the car for about an hour, overcome with sorrow and tears. It's all settled now. Sherry and I can't be together anymore. I conveyed this news to her via a text message, also attaching a photo of the DNA test result. After sending this message, I received numerous calls from Sherry, but I didn't want to engage in conversation with her or see her again. I also made a serious decision to purchase a house far away from Sherry and Tom, in an effort to leave the past behind once and for all. It's been 7 months since I blocked Sherry and all our mutual acquaintances. I bought a small house and try my best not to dwell on the past with Sherry. My work and involvement in sports help me with this. I have a girlfriend with whom I spend weekends away from work, and we have a great time together, but I'm not looking for anything serious at the moment. Recently, I learned about Sherry's and her child's fate from my parents, and it brought me to tears, as I couldn't overcome the pain. Following my message, Sherry became hysterical, which eventually led to a deep depression. She even refused to eat and spent entire days in bed. Due to this emotional breakdown, she gave birth to a premature baby girl who was diagnosed with Down syndrome. Now Sherry is raising the child on her own, living with her parents, who assist her with everything.